Good afternoon. Welcome to the Municipal Council Budget Hearings on Monday, August 12th, 2024. Council President, council members, the first department up for their budget hearing is the Department of Administration.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Thank you to all of the council members that are here today for day one of our budget hearings. We want to welcome our Business Administrator, Eric Pennington, who is before us for presentation. Welcome, Mr. BA.
Thank you, Council President, council members. Eric Pennington, Business Administrator for the City of Newark. I'm happy to be able to present to you the departmental budget for administration. There are several division heads who are here in the audience as well, who are available to answer more specific questions with respect to their divisions in the Department of Administration. But if I could just open with giving the departmental highlights and then be prepared to address any questions you have for me and for the administrative staff. I'm ready to move forward. And the Office of a Business Administrator provides long-term budgetary guidance and daily operational directives to the department in conformance with the mayor's strategic vision. The business administrator is responsible for managing the City of Newark's $914 million plus operational budget, over 3,800 employees, including temporary employees, and overseeing a city of over 300,000 residents. At the last decennial census, it was about 311,000 plus residents. The 2024 recommended budget will keep the city on a path of prudent fiscal management, while at the same time meeting the service delivery obligations to our residents and supporting Mayor Baraka's commitment to moving Newark forward by reimagining public safety, empowering residents, creating affordable housing, achieving equitable growth through employment and jobs, growing the city through economic development, engaging and collaborating with Newark residents, Hope Village for residents without addresses, making sure that we continue that initiative. And in this past year, we've hired the largest firefighter class of 70 recruits in the history of the city of Newark, and we intend to continue hiring police officers. In developing the 2024 budget for the city, the administration had to overcome a number of challenges, which included supply chain issues that drove up the cost of goods and services and inflation. Although it has improved, our local economy is still recovering from COVID, and the American Rescue Plan Act funds are no longer available going into the next fiscal year, which is our calendar year, which requires a city to overcome a reduction in general revenue of approximately $45 million. In addition, the city experienced increases in its health insurance costs. And when I say that, I want to note that by moving out of the state health insurance plan, we decreased the amount of what the increase would have been relative to other municipalities who did not leave the state health insurance plan. Although the ultimate cost did not go down, the increase was significantly reduced. What the increase would have been was significantly reduced. Notwithstanding these fiscal pressures, after adjusted for anticipating state and federal funding, the total 2024 recommended general fund budget of $914.4 billion is approximately $22 million more than the 2023 adopted budget of $892.5 million. Because of the loss of the special state and federal funding, and the increased cost of the county levy of $22 million due to the loss of ratables, the city has had to request from the state a loan to reduce the overall increase in the tax rate. The 2024 general fund budget contains a property tax increase of $189.68 over 2023 on the average residential assessment. And if you would like any additional information with respect to that $22 million loan, I'm happy to provide that at this time as well. The initiatives in 2024 general fund budget contributing to this increase are summarized here. Increase for pension costs of about $6.4 million. Increase for health benefits is $30 million. Police and Fire Training Academy is $10.4 million, and that's the amount to pay for the facility. Debt service of $9.1 million. Increase of the Essex County tax levy, which is $22 million. The budget keeps the city fiscally sound as it continues to rebound from COVID and provide the resources required for our city departments to deliver quality services to Newark residents. I look forward to participating along with the other city departments in this municipal council budget hearings as they are scheduled. If there are any specific questions you have of me now with respect to what I've just provided or any other detail, I'm happy to respond.
Councilman Gonzalez.
Yes, I have one question, and it's regarding the vacancies. I see that you have some vacancies that are funded. Let's say in the office of, what's this, administration, line 06035, you have an assistant chief of administrative services funded for 78,200.
Yeah, Councilman, I apologize. It's a little difficult to hear you. I apologize.
In the administration budget, line 06035,
Yes.
you have one, actually, it's not that one. Let me go back to where you have is a zero. I lost the page now. Let me try to see where it was. There's so many pages here. There are 3 lines that have a vacancies and zero, and they have a salary assigned to it in different departments, different divisions of your department.
Yes.
Let me see if I can find it now. I had it, but I'll get back to you with that's the only question that I have.
Sure. Do you have is there a general question with respect to the vacancies that I can answer irrespective of what it is?
It's that, let's say, we are in August already, so if you have a vacancy, you're not going to fill it before the year, or you might fill it and only incur a portion of the salary. So whatever salaries are assigned to vacancies should be zero, or should be, let's say, only a fraction of what you have. So if you are, I understand that we are approaching the expenditure cap, so maybe that's a way to bring it below.
Certainly, vacancies can be used in many different ways, and even though we are halfway through the budget year, we have still budgeted for a particular position throughout the year. But to that point, I should note, well, 2 things I should note, take this opportunity to talk about. We are currently have an administrative hiring and promotion freeze unless it's for a sort of a 1-for-1 transfer. If somebody's leaving, we'll replace it with somebody at about the same rank if it's an essential position. If it's not an essential position, or to your point, if it's a current vacancy and we don't need it, it's not likely that we will fill that position. So you're correct. The other thing I would say is Darlene Tate, who has been out on recuperating, is paying attention to this budget hearing. And if there are any questions that are specific for her, please feel free to ask them. And if I can't get the answer to you right now, I will have her get those answers by tomorrow. She'll be listening and can address anything.
I don't have real. I can't wait for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, Councilman Council?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. BA, just wanted to talk about how does the impact that we have this year, what does that look like for next year's budget? You talked about the 22 million, and I know at some point we have to be in some kind of payment arrangement, but what impact do we look forward in terms of 2025 having? And I'll let you answer that. I have a couple of more questions, but I will.
Sure. The $22 million that the increased levy that we pay to the county is as a result of what's called our equalization ratio, which means that the properties that we have assessed in the city of Newark in many instances are being sold for multiples of that assessed value. Because of that, we owe the county additional funds that we had not initially budgeted for in this year. to make up for that difference, because the amount that we pay is based on what every municipality in the county pays. So our assessed value is lower than what many of the other municipalities in the county is. And so that's an adjustment for what we should have to pay. In fact, last year was at about 88%, and this year the equalization ratio is about 55%, which is a significant drop. The way to adjust for that is to have a revaluation so that all properties across the city are assessed and valued at about 1-to-1. We're not there. The reval contract was signed, but there's a small amendment to the contract. And so it should be going to the state within the next week to 10 days for approval so we can have the reval. We need to do that as quickly as possible because I want to ask the company that we've contracted with to expedite the reval process. There are about 53,000 line items. So even if they expedite the process in order to do 53,000 valuations, it's a multi-year process. So it's still likely to take until close to 2027 for the reval to be done. So to get to your question of how that's going to impact next year, that's a long way to getting to that $22 million will increase, unfortunately. So we're going to owe the county additional money because of the equalization ratio in the subsequent year. And we're making adjustments to that already so that it's not as impactful. But the anticipated amount of money that we'll have to send to the county as a result of the difference in the equalization ratio is closer to $40 million in 2025.
So, I also noticed that there was some increases from 23 to 24 from your office, 1.7 to 2.1, personnel 1.5 to 1.6, Office of Technology 9.5 to 11.6. And I know that there's been conversations for a couple of years now, really talking about how to plan proportionally to try to make all employees whole or raise the levels of income across the line, because there's a huge disparity in individuals who have been here, some for 30 or 40 years, making 35 or 40,000, and some individuals who've been here probably 5 years or less than 6 years, making 70 and 8. And we understand what the market is, but at some point, what plan do you foresee in just trying to level out or mitigate some of this bleeding with the disparity with some of this pay?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Councilman Council. And we agree that there has been a disparity in pay, not just within city government, but relative to what it costs to live here in the city of Newark and in the state of New Jersey in general. So one of the things that we're working on now is pursuant to a directive of the mayor is no full-time employee will be paid less than $40,000. And that starts this year. So we're in the process now of adjusting salaries that are below $40,000 so that everybody makes at least that much. Now, there are some complications to that. We have 35-hour employees, 37.5-hour employees, and 40-hour employees. So as we adjust the salaries at one level, we have to adjust equivalent salaries at other levels so that the hourly rates are also equivalent. As part of that process, we're also looking at an equitable adjustment for employees who have been here for a longer period of time, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So we're working on that through executive orders and individual assessments as well. And our Director of Personnel is tasked with overseeing that. She is well along the way, actually. I would say probably more than 70% complete. But we need to do it pretty much all at the same time. Otherwise, we'll create another disparity or an inequity. So we are just about done making those executive order changes so that those salary adjustments can be made. Of course, with those salary adjustments, it does have an impact on the budget. It's reflected in this budget already. And we're hopeful that we can have those equitable adjustments to salaries done within the next 4 to 6 weeks at the latest.
And Madam Chair, last question. What is our plan to wrap our arms around this total spent on CSS?
Well, two things. We don't have CSS anymore, but I know what you mean, though. These temporary employees, we have some different company. Our objective, and we are not there in all honesty, is to have CSS employees, so you got me using the same phrase as you, the CSS employees, only work in that capacity for 6 months. And then we have to make a determination. If they're not working out, they have to be let go. And if they are, we have to do our best to move them to city-side employment where they get full benefits and they get full pay. I will tell you, one of the difficulties and sort of unanticipated consequences of doing that is when you move somebody from temporary status to working on the city side, even though their salary may increase and they get health benefits and they get some level or the possibility for some level of permanency, the take-home pay may be decreased, even if the hourly rate increases because you have pension contributions now. You have to pay for your healthcare costs. The tax rate is different. And that has caused a problem. There are some employees who have said, I don't want this. They may have health insurance from a spouse or from some other place, or they're young enough to still be on their parents, or they don't care about the pension contribution. And I'm not here to judge whether or not they think it's appropriate to pay into a pension system or not. Personally, I think it's a good thing for them to do. And if they're on the city side, it is statutorily obligated that they do that. But we've had some employees who have declined full-time status because of the impact it's going to have on their salary. Now, this is for mostly lower-paid employees. So as we adjust these salaries up to be at a minimum of $40,000, I'm hopeful it won't have that much of an impact, and the employees will be more ready to accept that offer. In either event, we are working toward eliminating long-term temporary employees. Thank you for
Councilman Ramos?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I think Councilman Council covered some of, my concerns, Mr. BA, is, we recognize that the last few years, the city, like other cities across the country have, has benefited from, additional federal money coming into our municipality to cover some of the losses in revenue, to provide some relief as a result of COVID. We also recognize like that money is pretty much dried out. You have a department that's not the biggest department in the city, but does represent, close to a 15% increase in expenditure from last year to this year. What's your plan going into next year, as a leading department for the city to ensure that, we all are living within our means and are prepared for some tougher times come 2025? A budget request that's 15% over last year doesn't necessarily set the right tone for what's to come. And, I'm just trying to figure out from your end, how do you think you're going to get us to weather the storm? And understanding that the $20+ million that we had to contribute to the county because we kind of delayed reval so much, the only reason we got through that this year is that we took a loan, which, still shows up as debt on behalf of the city, is not included in the 2024 budget, may rear its ugly head again in 2025. We're not going to have reval completed by next year. So guess what? We're going to have to come up with some potential gimmick to pay that in addition to some of the other expenses that we have. So what's your plan as the BA? How do you get us to the point where the city's going to be better prepared financially to deal with some tougher times ahead? And how do you justify a 15% increase in your department request budget for this year?
Thank you, Councilman Ramos, for that question. I'll start, I think, sort of in the middle where you talked about the loan that we're getting from the state. It is reflected in this budget, the $22 million. It's not required to be paid back the way a traditional loan would have to be paid back. It's a zero interest loan that can be paid back as our budget allows for us to pay it back. So that could be next year, the year after that, or even the year after that.
Is there anything being included in 2024's budget to pay toward that $24 million? How much?
Zero.
Zero, okay. So
That's
we're not paying anything toward the $24 million this year.
The $22 million this year, no, we're not. So it's not reflected in there, and it's likely that we will not include anything in next year's budget either unless there is some windfall. But there's no, it's not accruing interest, so it doesn't really impact our debt to any significant degree other than the amount of money that we get from the state. So I don't want to suggest that it's not significant. It is, but it's not going to be accruing interest, and it will not show up as a payment that is due necessarily in 2025. So that part, to some extent, we can set it aside and not have to worry about the impact immediately. We do have to worry about the impact long-term because we have to pay it back to the state. It will be hopefully prepared to do that. Some of what looks like a 15% increase in my department is because some positions are being moved from other departments into my department, and that's what a portion of that increase is for. You see other places where there are reductions in the budget where that has come from. The largest increase overall is coming from IT. We're behind the industry norms with respect to how much we spend on information technology, on software in terms of upgrades, and making sure that we have the appropriate firewalls in place and mechanisms in place to ensure that we're not vulnerable to attack. And so we do have to spend more money in IT than we have had in the past. There are also some other expenses that we had not captured previously in IT that we're working on addressing. For example, we have changed the manner in which we get, and IT can talk about this more directly if you want them to talk about it, the way we procure our cell phones for all city employees. We have switched carriers or made other carriers available to us to reduce significantly our cost in that area. We've already realized some of those savings by the switches that we've done and by shutting off cell phone services that we don't use, not just telephones, but like the iPads that I have and those hotspots that people use. We have a system in place now where if they're not being used, we look at the data and see that it hasn't been used for 60 days, we shut it off. Once in a while, we find out that somebody's actually using it. They come to IT and then it can be reinstated, but that's given us some significant savings, but not enough to offset the increased costs or what we need to do to make sure that we have a up-to-date, modern information technology department. We also have a great deal of development going on. We anticipate that with the increased development, it will increase the ratables and we'll have more funds coming into our coffers as we move forward. And we have to be fiscally prudent. We expect to maintain this hiring freeze, hiring increase. Right now, it's for the foreseeable future. Obviously, understanding that we still have to do some hiring and there will be some promotions necessary statutorily through civil service and otherwise, but we're just going to have prudent oversight to make sure that we manage our funds proactively.
Can I have one last thought? So you're telling me that the 24 million that we had to pay the county as part of our budget this year, you're not anticipating for us to be in the same position come 25, or you're not sure at this point? I mean, I don't think we're going to be done with reval. Your equalization rate is in the 50 percentile. Do you think whatever internal measures you're doing, is it going to be enough to offset that in 25? Is there another payment that's going to be due to the county on top of the 24 million this year?
Two things. It's 22 million, and there will be an additional increase the following year as well. So we're already starting to figure out and work on ways that we can adjust that. We're looking at properties that are coming online to see what the increased ratables are going to be. We are addressing tax appeals. When the equalization ratio goes where it is, we are subject to losing tax appeals, but we have the opportunity, as we've discussed in the past, of doing some affirmative tax appeals as well. We don't want to do that in a way that negatively impacts our residential customers, but we have to look at some of it to make sure that we address this. But I think the short answer to your question is we are anticipating the same, I'll say, difficulty with the equalization ratio in 2025 as we are in 2024. In fact, it will be greater. So we have to take steps to address that.
Okay, any other questions before we have to move on? Councilman Silva?
Yes. Good afternoon,
Good
Sabia.
afternoon.
Just a quick question. So the payment in lieu, it went from 20, and this, you might have covered this when I wasn't here, and I apologize, went from 25 million to 23 million. Every meeting that we have, we push development. We're voting on something regarding development. What's going on? We're voting for it and it's not getting accomplished, it's not getting built. Would you be able to tell me right now if, well, what's holding up that this number is actually going down? It went from 25 million down to 23 million.
I don't have the specific answer to that. I could certainly get it, but it could very well be that properties that have been in a tax abated status or payments in lieu of taxes have come on off of that pilot and gone into ratables, tax ratables. But I think to get to the gravamen of your question, we take too long to get projects that are in the development stage up and running. And we are working on that. We're working diligently every day to streamline the process, to make sure that it gets through zoning and planning, then that it gets through our UCC department when it's time to actually approve the developments. We are faced with a little bit of a crisis with respect to our subcode officials. We don't pay them enough, and they are hard to come by, and so it backs up our ability to review the projects that are online fast enough to get them up and running. One of the things that we're doing about it, what's the plan? You're going to say, I can tell you all the problems in the world, but there should be a plan. Our plan is that the Department of Community Affairs in the state now allows for states to hire third-party contractors to provide those subcode services. I am told that there are 8 companies who are authorized by the DCA to provide those services now. Our engineering department has reached out to all of them so that we can retain them at the approved rates. We want to use them all. We have received a response only from one, that's an elevator subcode company, and we're working to secure their services now. And we're going to have a more aggressive outreach to the other 7 companies who can do this work. What even makes it more sort of vexing for me is we don't really have to pay the money. The developers pay the money, and they will pay for these third-party vendors. So I've reached out to some of the developers as well to have them help identify companies who will apply through the DCA to be able to be third-party vendors. And so I'm expecting that they're going to be doing that and bringing those names to me. As they are approved, we will reach out to them as well and try to hire them to help do the service. Simultaneously, we're working to see if we can, on a per diem basis or a permanent basis, bring on more subcode officials. And by that, I mean electrical subcodes, plumbing subcodes who have to approve these, fire officials who have to do the sprinkler systems and do other fire tests to approve the buildings. I think I said electrical subcode, building, just the overall building subcode officials. We have to hire more. So we're working in different ways to get them. I'll likely be coming to the council at some point to have a special increase in salaries for the subcode people that we have, because we do not pay enough, and so we're losing out to other municipalities. Our engineering department is giving me a proposal, I think this week, to lay out what other municipalities are paying and where it is we can increase our salaries to be competitive with them. And so I'll be bringing something to you, I would say within the next month or so, about adjusting those salaries.
My next question is regarding the Passaic Valley. The 1 million that they pay in lieu of taxes, is that an agreement that the city has with them?
Yes,
Can I get a copy of that agreement if you don't mind?
I'm sure. I don't have it handy, but yep, we will get that to you.
And why don't they have a host agreement, kind of like Port Authority does? So if you go back to the pages after, Port Authority pays an additional last year they paid an additional 7. This year they pay an additional 4 as a host.
The Port Authority?
Yeah, host municipality agreement on top of the 100, and Port Authority pays their fair share
Yeah.
and then pays an additional number as a host. That's on page number 5.
Yeah, I don't believe that's a host agreement. As a typical host agreement, Covanta pays us a host agreement.
Why doesn't Passaic Valley pay us anything?
I do not know the answer to that. I'll have to look into it and get you more information on why it's not a host agreement as opposed to a pilot. I mean, the amount of money we want to get the amount of money that the city is due, whether it's called a pilot or whether it's called a
No,
hosting remit.
what I'm trying to say is you have Port Authority pays their regular fee. And then on top of that, they pay an additional fee as a host agreement with the city. Why doesn't Passaic Valley have that additional fee assessed to them as a host agreement?
I don't have the answer to that with me at the moment, but I'll get it.
Okay. Just a few more questions.
Sure.
So I see the payroll tax is almost jumping from 64 to 102. That's a 38, almost $40 million jump. What's your basis on that? Like, what's your assumption that it's actually going to go up that high?
Well, this is one of the benefits of being late. We don't want to be late, but we have empirical data to show that the payroll tax increases will be reflected by that amount by the time we end the year, based on what we have recovered.
Okay. That's it.
Councilman Crum.
Thank you, Council President. Just a couple quick questions. One, to piggyback off of Councilman Council's question regarding the temps or CSS. I saw it in one of the pages. That's why I was saying CSS too. But do you know the number of temporary employees and also what that impact is on the budget, the financial impact?
No, I do not know how many temporary employees we have. It is in the neighborhood of 1,000, but I can get the exact number to you and up to, I presume you want up through now or anticipated for the entire year. What is your?
Up through now, year to date.
Okay, I can get you that information, but I don't.
And is that number included in the 3,000 employees that, or 3,100 employees that are covered by, that I think I saw in the documentation?
The documentation says about 3,800
Oh, 38,
employees.
okay.
We have about 3,100 full-time employees, maybe a little bit less. And the other temporary employees, just a little bit less than 1,000 temporary employees. But I can get you the exact numbers.
Okay. Just a couple more questions, Council President. With regards to filling vacancies, is there maybe the internal discussion or policy regarding whether a position will be filled if it's vacant more than 2 or 3 years?
Our official position is we need to make a determination after 6 months as to whether or not the employee should be moved over to the city side or let go, quite frankly. So we should not have employees who are 2, 3, 5, 7 years. I know that we do, and we're working on reducing that number.
Okay, thank you. And one other question I had, and this is just a general question. I don't want to get too specific involved in it. With the conversion to CVS, recognized as there's a $6.3 million savings benefit for that. Is that a savings for 2024 or for the next 6 months or 5 months of 2024? Is that what that?
It's for the entire year of 2024.
Even though we didn't start it until?
We started in February. I think it's February or March.
So that's not dealing with the prescription. That's just the
Oh, sorry. I thought you
CVS.
said
I'm talking about
prescription
CVS. I
plan.
think that's specifically said CVS.
The prescription, you're talking about CVS prescription plan? Where they're the
And
administrator?
it
Yeah,
said, yeah, I believe it said it was a $6.3 million.
right. And I apologize. That didn't start until July 1st. So, yes. And what is the question is the savings are supposed to be anticipated through the end of the year?
For the end of the year.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And I think all the other questions I had were asked and answered. Thank you, Council
Thank
President.
you. Okay, Councilman Gonzalez has a quick follow-up, and then we can move on.
Question, the Office of Violence Prevention and the Latino Festival, what line is that coming from?
You said what line is it coming from?
Yeah, because you have, let's say, other professional services, you have $753,780. I don't see an explanation for that. So I want to know where is the money for that festival coming from? So that the Office of Violence Prevention, I understand, is a sponsor of that.
Mine.
They are one of the sponsors of it.
So I would like to know where that money is coming from.
All right, I will find out which line item. is funding the Latin Festival. Yeah. I will get that to
Council
you.
President, I'm
All right.
sorry. I just have two more quick questions. I
Okay,
apologize.
I'm sorry, we just on a tight schedule. We got all these folks out here waiting on us. Go ahead, Councilman Silva.
The paving, that $3 million for paving, is that a set number, or because that's $600,000 per ward and that's not going to get you much?
Two things. It is a set number, and it's not necessarily $600,000 per ward. It could be 100,000, I mean, 1 million in one ward and 250,000 in another ward. So I understand what you're saying. We have, in many instances, we should allocate more money for paving if we can. Given our constraints, the amount of money that we have in the budget, we think is the best that we can do. And we are doing our best to get municipal aid from the state, coordinating with public service and utilizing our water and sewer department as they have regular maintenance to make sure that we coordinate those paving efforts so that the paving is not just limited to $3 million. It should be at least double that when we factor in everything else that's in there, but that's still not enough, to your point. We would love to do more. We do not have the resources to do more at this time.
I think we should definitely follow up and have that meeting with the DOT as well. And the last one was that miscellaneous. It went from 35 million to 79 million. It's page 3 of 13. I realize 22 million is part of the loan, but how do you factor in the other 22 million?
Yeah, I don't have the same book you have, unfortunately, so I don't know which page you're on.
Okay, it's something we can discuss afterwards.
Okay, sure.
Well, let's make sure, Madam Clerk, if you can help, or Jerusha, get the BA a copy of what we're looking at so that he can know what the councilman is asking for or clarification he's asking for. Lastly, I'll end us off just with a couple of requests. I'm not going to get too much in it because I know we're over time, but if this entire council can get a list of the entire well, we have a list of the employees in some of these booklets. Not all directors are following the same format still, but if we can get a list citywide of all of the provisional employees by department, that'll be good. And also explanations on why they're still provisional. Some of the people have been provisional for years. Let's get a list of why they can't become permanent and what are we doing as a city to try to help them become permanent, and a full to date amount of how much we pay in fines to civil service because of these provisional employees. Lastly, well, no, not lastly, close to last, can I get a line by line item breakdown for the contracts and agreements for both personnel and informational technology? For personnel, there's a total of $245,366. Would like a breakdown of what contracts and agreements that's for. And then for informational technology, it's $7,754,000 for contracts and agreements underneath that line. Would like to see a list by list of contracts and agreements that we're paying for $7 million out of informational technology. And then lastly, I think it would be really great for this council to see what is the justification for director to director for raises. There is some discrepancy or equity problem in terms of raises for directors. One director says $10,000. Another director specifically, I won't say what the director's name or title is because then you'll know who they is, and I don't want anyone to feel pointed out. But one director has a budget of 2023 for their salary at $140,000. In 2024, the proposed salary is $164,000. So they're getting about a $24,300 increase in their salary. It's important that this council see a list of who's getting a raise, all of the directors, what's the justification for the raise, how do we come to the agreement for the raise? Because one director getting 10K, another director getting 24,000, and the list goes on and specific of how they're getting raises. So we need to know that. It's important to point out as well for this council that some of these salaries are set by ordinance. Some positions, shall I say, salaries are set by ordinance, and we need to make sure that we're in a guideline to those ordinances and how we're giving our raises. So we're going to need that about their raises. That is urgent.
Sure. Can I just very, very quickly address that one? All of the director's salaries are set by ordinance. The raises that are reflected in most cases are because we reinstated longevity. And so that reflects a significant portion of what they are. There's no, should not be individual raises for directors other than longevity. I haven't approved any, but I'll look into that further as
Great
well.
point. We would need to see it.
Sure.
So if they're someone's getting $24,300 by longevity, it'll be nice for this council to see who that is or why they're doing it, what years, what is it based off? And that would be helpful for all directors so we can understand their salaries or the salary increase, shall I say. Don't want to say understand the salaries, but understand the increase. So that we can know that it's for longevity or whatever the case might be. That'll be helpful for us, so someone's not saying, oh, they're getting 30,000 and, it's 30,000 in longevity. I don't know, but specifically, we need that breakdown.
Yes, Council President, I've tried to take notes, but can I impose upon your staff to send me a request of the things that?
Yes,
Okay.
you guys got it to send to the BA? All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Councilman Ramos?
Focus on the longevity piece, Eric. If you could add, like, what is longevity going to cost us as it relates to this year's budget? If you were to add up everyone that got authorized to receive longevity, what does that amount to on a yearly basis?
Will do. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. BA.
You're very welcome.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Next department?
The next department is the Department of Economic and Housing Development.
Madam President, we have a statement.
Oh, yes. Could we get is a copy for us? Can we get somebody from the clerk's office to give? Thank you. Good evening, EHD. It's good to see you all. You can go ahead and
evening.
get started.
Thank you, Council President, council members. Good evening. Allison Ladd, Director of Economic and Housing Development, here with colleagues Gerard Crowder, the Assistant Director, Janine Hazard-Williams, who's our Manager of Housing and Finance, but also acts as a Chief Financial Officer for our department. I wanted to read a brief statement into the record, although I know we're on a tight schedule, so I'll also actually truncate it a little. So first, our mission of the department is to create economic opportunity for Newark residents and enhance the vibrancy of our city through our budget priorities. We continue to progress towards an equitable, empowered, collaborative city envisioned by Mayor Raj J. Baraka in his Newark Forward Blueprint. Collaboration remains the key ingredient as we focus on the future of equitable growth to ensure that all residents benefit together as we advance Newark forward. We know that together with the Municipal Council, we work to advance these policies, ordinances, and programs that were built upon the last 10 years of the Baraka administration. Currently, our budget, which we're seeking your approval of, is $3.97 million and 77 full-time employees. This includes paid board members and commissioners in addition to staff. We do have additional staff funded by federal grants, local trust funds, and philanthropic dollars. We have submitted our responses to the budget questions as requested. I wanted to highlight just a few items before we take any questions and answers. First, we're focused on producing, preserving, and protecting affordable housing for Newark residents. As you may recall, in 2021, Mayor Baraka announced 5-year housing goals, and today we track these housing goals using an online tracker on our website. These 5 goals include adding 3,000 new housing units, both market and affordable, across all 5 wards, fund the creation or preservation of 6,600 affordable homes, prioritizing units for Newarkers making less than 30% of AMI, conveying vacant property currently held by the city or land bank for successful development, in which 30% of the units developed on these sites or for residents making 80% of AMI or below. We also want to support 1,500 new and 200 existing low to moderate income home buyers. And finally, we want to support 10,000 vulnerable or unsheltered households by 2026. The next item I wanted to mention was how we're enhancing inclusionary zoning to create housing for Newarkers. So we're really implementing the first dibs, which was the ordinance passed by this council last year. Today, we have had 6 projects to date that had 180 affordable units. 106 of them were leased to Newark residents, so we reached 59% of these units were leased to Newark residents. Currently, there are 4 projects being marketed throughout the city and on our link tree, and residents can apply for the affordable housing development, the affordable housing units in these mixed income housing developments. The next item is regarding our Newark zoning and land use regulations. Today, we're implementing the nuzzler, and it's really allowing us to have commercial corridor upzoning, to enhancing community development, create accessory dwelling units, to allow for more housing in our neighborhoods, and also protecting our environment through green building requirements. Also, with the support of the council, we have held our first supplemental zoning board meeting on August 1st. And this supplemental zoning board will help the city tackle the backlog and pipeline of zoning board applications so that we can advance our development forward. Quick note, with the change of the zoning ordinance, we've actually had 16 applications move from the zoning board to the central planning board, and we've had even more applications be able to go straight to permits. So the support of the changes to the Newark zoning and land use ordinance have really been able to help us expedite some of the development needed in our city. Next item, we're activating vacant and blighted properties to generate tax revenue. We were able to hear our BA speak about this earlier. Just a couple notes here is that we're really working to advance the sale of city-owned property, whether it's to transfer property to the Newark Land Bank or selling property directly to residents and developers who are interested in investing in our city. We also, in this area, though, we are implementing the vacant building ordinance that was passed by this council last year, and we're able to actually collect the fees for vacant buildings, also accept the registration, and in a good way, we've actually deregistered 3 projects just in the last 30 days, which means that they're now in active use. Moving on to equitable development, I know we spoke about this at a recent council meeting. Today, for their equitable investments in Newark communities, we have successfully had round 1 approved for 5 sites, and the second round of 11 sites is currently being considered by the city council. We're really excited about this initiative as we had over 90 applications for developers interested in participating in this exciting development and community development initiative. We're expecting construction to start on all 16 projects between now and the first quarter of 2025. The next item is really holding our partners accountable. And we did create a compliance office in 2022. But what I wanted to note is that we also recently hired a new rent regulations officer, and it's really strengthened our work around rent control. I think that that's been a consistent theme that we've heard, is that we need to have stronger compliance in this area. And so we've been able to send out non-compliance letters. We're able to hold our rent control board meetings and provide the resources back to our residents for unlawful rent increases. And we're also accepting new construction exemptions for any new project that has been developed in the city. In closing, I just wanted to thank our economic development management team and their entire staff. It's really our entire team that really helps make these initiatives come to fruition, and also manage the day-to-day operations of the department. Special thanks to Gerard Crowder, Janine Hazard-Williams, and Karina Pereira, who really help us lead the department every day. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and we welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Ladd. Questions from council members? Councilman Gonzalez.
Yeah, I see a lot of variation between 2023 and 2024 in the salary line. Is that because you have a lot of turnover in your department, or is?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Gonzalez. So in EHD, one thing you'll notice in our org chart is that we did have a significant change in our management team over the last 12 months. So you'll see where people who are still within the department were either promoted from within or they accepted a new role within the department. So that's what you'll see as far as changes in salaries from one part of 1 year to the next.
Yeah, I see, let's say, for example, if you have line 0B 565, and you had, last year, you had one person for 66,000. Now you have two for 198. So that they went from 67,000 to 94,000. I understood that we were more or less on a financial crisis in the city. And we see these jumps in salaries that are not reflecting the condition of the city. I believe that we have to be more aggressive in reducing or not increasing the salaries as much, so that we can hold the deficit at a manageable place, so that we can fulfill the promises of the city with the monies that we have.
So I do understand the question. I will say, though, that our budget is flat, and so we have not increased the budget amount except for about $20,000 from last year to this year. So what we're doing is really moving monies within the same budget, all in, even if the line item looks different. Second, sometimes it's due to change in staff. So when someone departs, that salary might be one salary, and we may find the vacancy to be needed in a different way. One specific case in point is that we recently hired a project manager who is also an engineer, and that person in particular yielded a higher salary than perhaps somebody in the position was not an engineer.
Thank you.
I just wanted to piggyback off something that you said, Deputy Mayor Lay. You mentioned about the fees and things that we have now implemented for the vacant properties or vacant lots. Does the revenue come back to your department, or it goes to the general fund?
Yes, Council President, to that question, the funds currently go back to the general fund. We have considered asking the business administrator if there could be a way for it to be provided to the department, but currently it is going back to the general fund. Just by note, we've had 975 properties registered. We've collected $262,505 just in the last year.
Not too bad.
What was
Not
that
too
again?
bad.
We've had 975 properties registered, and we've collected $262,505 in the last year.
Not too bad. It could have been $0.
Is that-
So just another follow-up real quick. So for like tax abatement applications and things, when they're paying their fee, that revenue goes to who? Do you get any revenue back to your department?
Yes, Council President. So for tax abatements, by law, by ordinance, it actually has a split that dictates which place the fees go to. So there's the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, there's the Community
Okay.
Economic Development Trust Fund, along with the School Development Trust Fund, and those fees are all specifically deposited within those funds as the ordinance states.
Got it. And then I wanted to ask a question, and this might not be specifically for your department, but maybe for the BA. Invest Newark, does the contribution from the city come off of your line in your department or from the city general fund?
Yes, I can answer that question, Council President. The funds for Invest Newark are through our finance department. It is not a direct line item off of economic and housing development.
Okay, so I would save it for finance, but because y'all up here kind of control that, what's the amount of money that we paid to Invest Newark, or we gave to them for this year, 2024?
Yes, their funding agreement is $5 million.
And what's the proposed agreement for 2024? I mean, for 2025?
That is under discussion, Council President, with the BA currently.
You can whisper it out to me.
Oh,
Oh.
meaning, I'm
Oh, you don't
sorry,
have
ma'am,
a-
it hasn't been determined.
Oh, okay.
The current agreement lasts until December of 2024.
Okay. Oh, well, that would be nice to know what we're thinking of, because I would hope that it would be less for them. And then just a request, and Madam Clerk, you can put this in, because maybe Deputy Mayor Lau or the BA doesn't have that information, but I would love to get a full notice to the departments, specifically the BA and the Deputy Mayor, of how many properties we've given in total to Invest Newark for the land bank, and how much have they sold, and what has been the revenue that they've collected over there.
Yes, Council President, I can tell you the first answer. The first answer, as far as properties that have been transferred, that have been approved by the council, is about 160 properties. Tomorrow, you will be considering a third tranche, which is 71 properties. And I know that Invest Newark will be prepared to explain the utilization of those sites when they come before you tomorrow.
Okay, and just, Mr. BA, if you can let us know, when will you be deciding about how much money you're gonna be giving them for the next year? It looks like it probably should be 0, but that's just me personally, what I think. Any other questions for council members? Councilman Silva?
Yes, good afternoon, Ms. Ladd.
Good
I
afternoon.
asked the BA this question because the number went down for several $million. How many, and I probably asked this question in 2023 as well, how many projects right now are set in the entire city to be built? How many apartments would you say throughout the entire city? Would you have that number?
Yes, we do have a number that is on our tracker. And one moment, I can actually give it to you.
That we
have-
actually approved?
That's approved and going through CO. So we
Okay.
have those approved and open, and approved that are waiting for a certificate of occupancy.
Okay, so let me ask a question. Out of those approved, that we have approved here, how many are actually being built? Do you have that number?
Yes, that would be the certificate of occupancy number, and
Okay.
I'd be happy to provide that to you.
Okay. My last question is that, what do you think the reason is that that number went down from several $1 million regarding the pilots? What do you think it is? Do you think it's still an issue of resolution compliance? It's taken too long? We don't have enough people? What is your opinion that it takes a developer such a long time? Do we need to hire more people in engineering, in water, whatever it may be, to get these projects off the ground?
So Councilmember Silva, I understand the real estate, no matter where we are, is very complex and requires, as you know, so many.
Outside
departments.
of interest rates and the other things that we can't control within this building. I understand there's other factors outside the building, but from what we control inside this building.
Yes, and forgive me, I just meant that I think we know that it's a complex transaction, and so it takes a lot of people to participate in it. I think within City Hall, not only is it a partnership with City Council, we have partnerships with engineering and water and sewer, and to ensure that the developments are all done appropriately to building code and to the standards that we have here in the city. I think second, I also believe that through the supplemental zoning board, I do think that helped a lot. In addition to changing the Newark zoning and land use laws, I think those two items in and of themselves helped advance development more quickly. Now, I'd say last, regarding the ability to get resolution compliance post a board meeting, so the person can go to permits. That's something that we all have to work on. I have noticed myself that the time from resolution compliance to completion is too long, and that's on our board attorneys. They need to move more quickly to have those resolutions approved. In addition to our sister agencies, we all need to work together to prioritize the compliance of the projects once approved by the board.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Ramos?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. And I do want to just say, Director, thank you for keeping your requests in line with what was adopted last year. Just a few points. One of your biggest units in the department is property management, so my assumption is that they deal with the potential disposal of city-owned property, My question is that the more properties you transfer over to Invest Newark, so there should be less of an inventory of city-owned properties that this unit is responsible for. Do they clean up city-owned lots? Like, does neighborhood services or public works have that responsibility? You know, why do you need all these people in property management, and what do they really do?
Sure, Councilmember Ramos, thank you. Property management does have multiple roles. First, it is to sell the land through the LOI process or through a solicitation. Then following that, they of course have to close on the property. Second, we also have adopt-a-lots, and so that office manages the adopt-a-lots for our city. We have about 25 properties that have adopt-a-lots. Third, we do have some that are use and occupancy agreements that we are moving from use and occupancy agreements to sales. We really want to reduce that, or if they're not going to buy the property, we do come to the council to have a lease considered. So that's what you'll see going forward. On the asset management side, we do have several staff that manage inspections. And also they go out and do conditions of sale to ensure that the purchaser has access to the property. They do tour illegal dumping as well as cleanup needs across the city for city-owned property. And finally, we do work with DPW to ensure that's done collaboratively. So in that division itself, they have multiple roles. But in closing, I'd say, yes, we have already thought about what do we do as we transfer more property to the land bank. And what we will end up doing is pivoting their work to be compliance focused to ensure that the developers that we're selling land to are actually building and providing housing or other services needed.
And going back to the action that's coming before us tomorrow, I don't want to take us off track, but Council President asked for a status of the properties that we transfer to Invest North. You know, part of that agreement is that, you know, the ratables that come in once those properties are developed or rehabbed, you know, Invest North keeps a lot of that for a period of time. So before we entertain additional properties being transferred over, I would like to see a status of how many of the original properties that were transferred over have been either rehabbed or developed. How many years have they been on the tax rolls? Is the city collecting anything as a result of this, or is all the money staying with Invest North? You know, I think that's an important consideration.
Understood. I know we'll have that for you tomorrow, and perhaps we can try to send some of it to you tonight.
Okay. Councilman Crump.
Thank you, Council President. Let me just say this in lieu of the time, I know time constraints we have. Through your chair and through the clerk's office, is possible we can put questions together to submit to the, what's your name again?
Clerk.
Clerk. To the clerk, and she can submit them to the BA for follow-up. Is that?
You can say them now. We got time.
We got time? All right.
I mean,
let's go.
to say, I mean, if we have answers, if we can get them out quickly, that's fine. I mean,
All right, so let me just go right into it then.
Yeah.
All right, one question I had was, and piggybacking on what Council President was asking too, how many properties does the city actually have or own currently? And what are the plans so that we can generate some revenue from those and actually put them on the tax roll so we can get ratables?
So yes, Councilmember Crump, the number of properties we have, we'll get you a full list. Currently, the method that we're doing is we're releasing it publicly on our website, and we update it every quarter. And we have about 100 at a time. And the reason why we release about 100 at a time is because of the land bank transfers, as well as other initiatives that are led by the city, whether it's ending homelessness or the equitable investments aspects. So that's currently what we're doing around managing the inventory, but I'd be happy to send you the full list.
Do you have an estimate of?
It's in the hundreds, not the thousands.
No, a financial estimate in terms of what properties or that we have that we're going to sell and what you expect or anticipate revenue from those?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, bear with me 1 second. Since 2023, the council approved 128 redevelopment agreements. And we were able to close 39 of them, which is $2.5 million of revenue. That was 88 sites that were actually transferred. I'm happy to give this report to you in writing.
I appreciate it.
We still have about 128, we still have additional, sorry, my numbers are off. Additional, looks like 75 redevelopment agreements that need to be closed. And we also know that there are 14 that will not close, and that's due to some client compliance review since the council approved it.
And those-
So the numbers, sir, I'm sorry, were 128 approved by council. 39 of them have been closed, $2.5 million has been realized, and 88 sites.
And the
And we
70
still have about 75 remaining to close.
And those 75, do you have the anticipated revenue from those?
Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm happy to get it to you. We do keep a master spreadsheet that would be able to tell you that.
All right, thank you. Another question I have is regarding the professional services contracts. Are all of those contracts monies that are put in escrow and that are paid by the developer, or is any of that money paid out of EHD's budget? And if
Yes.
so, how much?
So the numbers that are actually in our budget book are what we budget under what we're going to expend through the department. Then we have additional expenditures such as outside counsel. Outside counsel is spent for escrow agreements, and that is done by the redevelopment escrow agreement. And then we have a third one, which is for planning and zoning. And then we have funds that are provided by developers for planning and zoning escrows.
And so the escrow, or the monies that you're expected to spend on escrow or through escrow are not incorporated in the budget?
No, sir.
And one last question, and just again, kind of piggybacking off of Council President, with regards to the vacant buildings and vacant lot ordinances, the anticipated revenue, I know you told us 975 something, and $262,000 has been realized in terms of revenue. What's the anticipated revenue or estimate for the end of toward the end of the year?
We do not have that, and that is because the vacant building registration is really meant to be that the owners are submitting it to us. But at times, the owners do not, and so when our team goes out into the community, they actually are identifying property, and then we are sending them an invoice, and then the owners are paying an invoice.
Just so, do you already have a list of properties that are identified?
Yes, we do.
And
And that
how-
would be the 975 properties that we've already
Okay,
identified,
so the ones that are already registered.
that are already registered, yes. It does not mean that all of them have paid. They're all registered.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hey, Councilman Council.
Madam Chair, real quick. First, I want to commend you for cutting overtime the way that you did. I think that was commendable. Just want to say that. And then two, still interested, just as last year, because of the movement of EHD, the importance of professional development, training, conferences. And I noticed that you cut back in your budget. But with the department that you have, with all of the innovation and everything that is happening nationally in terms of affordability, it would be my hope that you would really look to try to infuse some more dollars into training to really get a feel on what's happening around this country nationally as it relates to affordability. Then second, as my colleagues talked about the vacant lot, vacant building ordinance, I'm really encouraging the business administrator to look for us to hire a code enforcement officer specifically in that area to not just wait for the registrants to be able to come in, but to be able to go out and add summonses to those areas that are vacant lots, a property that has not been rehabilitated up until this point. So strategically, I hope that there's a plan when we talk about revenue generation. I would think that revenue generation and adding this employee, one and one can be able to help offset the revenue that would be generated from having this employee here. And then very specifically and intently, where does the School Development Trust Fund go?
So thank you, Councilmember Council. We also appreciate the compliment. For the training, I will say, though, that we do send our staff to training. We also are trying to find ways where there's sponsorships for the staff to go to training. So for instance, if there's a conference where someone's speaking and they allow for additional attendees, those that may have CLE requirements, we're inviting them to attend, so that where it's actually a cost-saving measure for us as well. And it's also why we reduced the number, because we haven't seen as much utilization there, because we've been able to get some sponsorships. But we are, as you shared, very interested in finding ways to help train and educate our team on national best practices just as much as the state ones. Second, on the vacant land and building, I will say two things. One, you'll notice in our staff listing that we do have a code enforcement officer in training. And this person started with us about 6 months ago and has been getting trained by engineering code enforcement office so that he can be ready to do exactly as you're speaking. But also related to that, we do have a good partnership with engineering where we have another code enforcement officer who's fully trained. That's basically embedded in EHD, who we pay their salary so that they can do on-spot violations and notices as needed. So we've had that breakthrough over the last year with our Department of Engineering, and Director Wooden was able to help us make that happen. Closing your question about the School Development Authority, the funds go to the school.
Well, prayerfully, those people won't have to take their stuff to court. You know what happened when it gets there. But I do want to say that perhaps maybe the 200 and something thousand you collected from the vacant lot registrations and stuff, perhaps they can get those couple of dollars back for some training. That might help instead of it going to the general fund, because we know some departments get to keep their little revenue and y'all just giving y'all's back to the general fund. But I'll rest there. Councilman Gonzalez is going to close us out.
On those, you have a lot of redevelopments that haven't closed. Who does the closing for you? Is that the legal department or is that your department?
Yes, Councilmember Gonzalez, it's a partnership. So it's led by Economic and Housing Development through Property Management. And then the law department does review documents to ensure they're legally sufficient.
The
before
attorney
closing.
actually doing the closing is from your department.
No, we have staff in our office that are not attorneys that prepare everything, but then it is reviewed by the law department.
Okay, thank you.
And-
I used to, let's say, to do closings with the city as at one point in my life, and usually it takes 6 months to a year to get into a closing table, and I believe that's something that should be expedited so that all these redevelopment agreements are completed on time.
We would agree with you, and we did just meet a few months ago, actually, to try to brainstorm ways to get to closing faster. And one of the things we noticed, it's one of the few processes that we use that's still paper and wet signatures. Most of what we're doing now in the city is actually electronic, done through DocuSign. So we're trying to think through how we can find a medium between the hard copies and wet signatures to DocuSign. So
And
we're going to be
they say
exploring that.
The title work is being more efficient because sometimes the title work wasn't, and you had to re-foreclose on the properties and all that stuff.
Yes, sir. We do have a few on our list even today that have to go through reforeclosure. So I would agree with that. And I know, Madam President, time is concluding, but I did want to have a chance, if it's okay, to answer Councilmember Silva's question about the development that's happening. We have 2,920 units that have already been, are leasing up or have already leased up. And we have 1,985 that are going through the CO, like construction and CO process.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much to the EHD team. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you, Council President, council members. Have a good day.
Have a great evening.
Council President, council members, the next department is the Department of Finance.
Okay. Good evening, Ben.
Good evening, good afternoon.
Welcome so much. It's great to see you. You can go ahead and get started.
Sure, absolutely. Just have a quick opening statement. Good afternoon, to Council President and council members. Benjamin Guzman, Assistant Director of Finance. Here today, it's my pleasure to present you to the Department of Finance's 2024 budget review. The Department of Finance is responsible for collecting, safeguarding, and processing all forms of revenue for the city. We also manage all bonds, notes, grants, trusts, and investments flowing into and out of the city, as well as maintaining accounting records, financial systems, and financial reporting. Today, I just want to bring a brief overview of 2024 and what we're anticipating. As of January 1st of 2024, the city's cash position for all funds totaled $324,894,335. Of that, $297,938,055 is for the current fund, $17,188,375 is for water utility, and $9,767,904 for the sewer utility. As the economy begins to settle post-COVID, we have continued to improve in our collections. In special taxes, our overall collections for payroll, parking, and hotel in 2023 was over $106 million, which was 111.05% of what we had budgeted last year. And we anticipate to collect the same, if not more, from 2023 in 2024. We continue our efforts to collect delinquent taxes and current property taxes. Our cash collections rate in 22 was 94%, and in 23 was 94.5%, and we are poised to continue down that same path. And in 2023, we also collected $24 million in delinquent taxes, and we're poised to do the same in 2024. Although economic conditions in 2024 have begun to level off, interest rates have remained flat since August of 2023, but the city continues to successfully price our bonds and our bond anticipation notes, gathering more than sufficient subscriptions at each of our sales. Moody's Investment Services continues to affirm the city's rating at a Baa2 with a positive outlook, and this is based on positive long-term economic prospects, multi-billion-dollar development pipeline, improved finances, and a diverse tax base. City continues to capitalize on higher interest rates. In 2023, the city earned over $8.6 million in interest across all of our accounts. Through the first 6 months of 2024, we have earned a little over $4 million in interest, and we will continue to work diligently to improve our economic position and hopefully to better serve the community and the residents of the city. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, Ben, how much have we paid out so far this year in tax appeals?
In tax appeals, I don't have that number right in front of me. I don't have that information in front of me now, but I can get that for you, how many we paid in tax appeals year to date.
That would be good. And then again, I don't want to repeat what the council president has already said as she laid out this information so eloquently. But you too have a department like 28 provisional employees. And I think we're going to get to a point where we're tired of hearing that. We're going to work through the regular HR processes to make sure that people are fine, that there has to be some kind of strategy in making sure that this happens. So
Absolutely,
I'm
Councilman.
fine.
And to your point, actually, some of that was brought to my attention earlier today, and it turns out someone should have been made permanent from provisional status at a previous time, and we actually started the paperwork on 2 of those employees today.
I just want to say that the provisional thing is totally a personnel's function. And I'm only saying that because I know, because I personally have done that job before. And it is personnel's job to keep up with that and notify directors and notify employees, which just seems to not happen here. Don't know why that is. Other questions? Councilman, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Councilman Ramos. I'm gonna go over here to my right. Councilman Gonzalez.
And I see that every division of your department has a salary increases, in some cases substantial, with the same number of employees. And let's say you have in the revenue collections, you went from 1,264,000 to 1,447,000. That's like $180,000, and you have the same 27 employees. In the accounts and controls, you went from 1,029,000 to 1,226,000. That's 199,000. again, with the same number of employees. What gives?
That's an excellent question, Councilman Gonzalez. Similar to what you've heard here before, increases in salary are mainly due to contractual obligations, mainly for longevity increases in certain individuals, as the business administrator alluded to earlier today, that beginning January 1st, certain employees who either became eligible for longevity, or their longevity, which had previously been frozen due to certain changes, now was allowed to increase to the next longevity percentage. And I would say over 90% of those salary increases you're referring to are due to those contractual obligations that we were required to statutorily. Some of those increases also, as you mentioned, like revenue collections, we did move some provisional temporary employees that were prior in CSS, or I believe the other company's name is payroll, that we had the temporary employment through. We did transfer a few of those employees over from that status over onto the city side. And when doing that, as been previously mentioned here before, that there are some additional costs of that, health benefits, what have you, and that's reflected in the increase in the salaries.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank Mr. Guzman. He's the face of the finance department, and interacts with this body almost at every council meeting. And my years here, the department staffing has remained relatively stable. Whatever increases you guys seek from us are mostly attributed to contractual increases. And like you said, this year, the longevity piece is impacting the city in a lot of different departments. My focus is on outside contracts, right? Like, I know you guys use NW for financial consulting services, Dakotas for bond counsel. Are those line items, based on your history, are we spending similar amounts to what we've spent in the past for outside financial consultants and bond counsel, or are those line items fluctuating a little bit? And if that is the case, what's driving that?
Councilman Ramos, to your point, we do continue to use NW Financial as one of the financial advisors. We also use additional financial advisors and distribute the work accordingly, depending on the department, not just the finance department's needs, but the city's department's needs. Similarly, with Dakotas as our bond counsel, we also have Wellens et al. That also does additional bond counsel work for the city. As far as to your question as to annually what the city has been allocating for those types of services, there have been some slight fluctuations, but primarily for the last few years, in my experience, those numbers have remained steady. I do know that for 2024, those numbers have decreased slightly, because based on historically what we have awarded the contracts to, we have been spending less than the total contract amount. So then whenever possible, I know for 2024, we have made, those decisions to actually slightly decrease the overall contract amount for the current year based on prior years' experiences and what we've had them do for us. So there, as I said, there have been, primarily it's been flat over the years. I think the trend has been setting where it's actually slightly decreasing over the last 2 or 3 years.
So you mentioned that for bond counsel, you also use Wellens, which is
Correct.
Everett Johnson. I don't see him listed, or I don't see their firm listed as outside counsel.
If it's not there, my apologies. I'll make sure that information, but we do use them on an occasional basis.
So they're also doing bond work for us in addition
Correct.
to Dakotas?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ben? All right, look at that,
That's
Ben.
Okay, thank you very
See
much.
you later.
It's been a pleasure.
You get to get home in time enough for dinner. Next, Madam Clerk.
The next department is the Department of Public Safety.
All right, Public Safety. Wow, is that John? I haven't seen you in such a long time, John James.
It's different.
Good to see you. As they say, on this side or the other side. It's good to see you. All right, Director, welcome with us. You can start with, you have an opening statement?
Yes, good morning. Good
It's
afternoon.
good evening,
Good
evening, dinner time.
Dinner time, so hopefully we'll make it to dinner time too at an early time. Thank you for having us here today. Council President, council members, thank you for having us today to present on our current budget. I'm here accompanied by the Assistant Public Safety Director, Rufus Jackson, the Director of Police Operations, Sharonda Morris, Chief of Police, Emmanuel Miranda, and the Director of OEM, John James is here. As we get started for this year in reference to our current budget, we'll just give you some quick line items before we start this conversation.
Can you put the mic closer? It's kind of hard to hear
So
you.
we can give you a quick line of where we're at with the police, fire, and OEM budget. We have a 1.5% increase to the police budget due to salaries and contractual obligations, or else it would have remained the same. The personnel remained at 2,299 total personnel in public safety, same as last year, no change. 97% of the current salary budget is police salary for the police department. There's been a 2% decrease in equipment this year. We're down $800,000 in the past 7 months up until I believe June 30th. For the fire, there is a decrease in the budgeted positions due to retirements and the fact that we replaced them with newer firefighters, which are a lower pay rate. It shows a slight decrease, but it's just because we have 79 new members at a lower rate, and we had an astronomical amount of retirements of senior level personnel. The fire budget, 99% of the salary is the fire budget. 1% increase in fire equipment, and that's the training. After the incident last year, we've had some training opportunities for the fire department. There's a 1% increase in that. And 2 firehouses were closed for remediation, and now they're being worked on opening those firehouses back up.
I'm sorry, state that again for us. It's kind of hard to hear still. You said
Yeah.
2 firehouses are closed?
2 firehouses were closed pending remediation. They're being worked on right now, and they should be open shortly. The remediation process is going on smoothly. We're just waiting the process of getting them back opened up. For OEM, there's a 10% decrease in UASI funding, and that's from UASI. Nationally, they advised that we're gonna get 10% less than we did the year before. We also have an increase of a budgeted position. We have an assistant director that was hired there as assisting Director James. We also, their jobs recently is completing the new fire radios and police radios to make sure that our radios aren't being listened to by outside entities. That's a major project that OEM is working on us for police and fire to equip it with a new radio system that's a lot more secure. This year, we have 109 crossing guards, and currently 17 vacancies are for crossing guards, of which 11 have been hired this year, and we're continually recruiting for crossing guards.
That you said 17 vacancies.
Yes, 17 vacancies.
Have they gotten a raise? Is that factored into your increase?
No, they haven't gotten a raise, same salary.
Well, that sucks.
In reference to the overtime, police overtime, one of the main reasons for the overtime is opening up a new precinct, stretching the personnel. So now we have mandated overtime to adjust for those certain circumstances. And on the police on the fire side is the implementation of the 1 and 3s on every single firehouse. So that increased the overtime rate of those entities. And for police, fire, and OPM, our top project is recruitment for the police, bring us back up to normal, and the new training academy. We've had a lot of success this year. We have a couple new buildings opening up. We have the training academy that opened up a couple months ago, and now we have the stables and the evidence building should be opening up sometime in September. The NIBIN building should be opened up sometime after September. Those are going to be projects to open those buildings up. And we have the traffic unit that's opening up. It's opening up now, waiting to get into the building and move the furniture into that location right now. For the fire, it's really continuing a program to continue to refurbish and buy new fire apparatuses and continue to get Badger Avenue set up so the fire can have a training facility. That's one of the major projects for the fire department. And we also have the drones. The drones have been implemented. We have 8 people that are trained in drones between police, 8 police members, 5 fire members are trained. We have 1 drone for the police department, and we have 1 drone for the fire department. And the drones are operational, and we use them for parades and not simple arrests, but rallies, just to make sure that the community is safe. We could document what's happened at those events, but they are operational.
So you said 8 police and how many in fire?
8
Trained?
police are trained, 5 fire members are trained in the use of
5.
drones. But we have 2, 1 for each.
But only 2.
2 drones, yes.
Okay.
And,
All right, we're going to pause you right there because I'm sure there are plenty of questions. Less time for presentation, more time for questions, okay? Councilman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have to excuse myself in a few, so I wanted to take advantage of the director's valuable time. My questions are gonna be more about fire. So you did mention about the fact that we do have a number of firehouses that are temporarily shut down. A few of them are impacting, my ward, specifically the one on 6th Street. When do you guys anticipate getting these firehouses reopened? I think that presents a major safety concern on behalf of the community. It seems like it's taking an awful long time to get those firehouses back in line. And, I'm not sure what's taking so long.
Right, for the firehouse we're talking about on North 6th, that's engine 28, I believe. We're currently gonna have, that should be opening up soon, so when we get the remediation done, that's gonna be the most likely the home of our soccer unit that is emergency response for all hazards throughout the city. So that should be opened up shortly. So shortly, as in within the next couple of months, once we get to remediation.
So that's not going to be a regular firehouse anymore?
Temporary.
It is or it isn't? Okay.
Yeah, it's, hello, council. Hello, Madam President. How are you?
Hey, good to see you. But just pull the mic closer. It's so hard to hear you guys
Both
down
very
here. I'm like
soft-spoken,
struggling.
No problem. All right. So Councilman Ramos, the station at 28 Engine, which is on 6th Street, the company is still out in operation. They're currently at the Mount Prospect Street station.
Which is at least a few miles away.
Not miles, a couple of blocks away.
No, Mount Prospect to North 6th Street, it's definitely a distance. I'll challenge you to a walk over there. Maybe we'll do the Chiefs run on Wednesday.
We could do that. We could do that.
We're all invited.
But it poses no real danger, I believe, to the community. We consolidate stations throughout the country, throughout the state, throughout the city regularly. So the company is there. We within the 4 to 5 minute response time, which is required. At the moment, the station previously the station was being remediated. It took a little while, but it's up to standard now. We're in the process of just putting the SOC unit there temporarily to support the safety of the city. So the SOC program will be Special Operations Command, and they'll be charged of working or doing the high risk type incidents that we may respond to, and not as frequent as we normally do. They'll have specialized training in hazmat, confined space, extrication, high angle rescues, and et cetera. They're gonna have specialized training, and they'll be able to support the operations throughout the city. This will be temporary until we get a final location for them.
Just a few more follow-ups. The other question has to do with the fact that, from what I'm gathering, is that some of the apparatus that you guys have recently purchased, vehicles, et cetera, that a number of them are not operational and they were recently purchased or leased. Are you having those kind of issues? And if so, what's the reason? Did we buy defective fire engines? Is there a recall on some of these vehicles? Because my understanding was that on Park Avenue recently, we did have a few days where we didn't have access to fire trucks.
So the trucks that we got aren't defected. They're new, and they're made by a company that's reputable and that's been around a long time. We've been purchasing trucks for them probably the entire life of my career. Over 30 years we've been dealing with this company. The ladder that was at ladder 7, we purchased it in 2017, 18. We get a lot of runs, we get a lot of assignments to respond to a lot of fires throughout the city, and we can't control breakdowns. This particular ladder broke down. It went to the mechanic shop. It took a couple of, maybe a week or so or more for the parts to come in, which we have no control over. Throughout the country, they have problems with getting parts and stuff. So at the time, we didn't have a spare. We did have a spare, but it's a bucket or a tower ladder, which only one company, which was assigned to actually take that apparatus. And we're dealing with stations that are over 100 years old. And these stations are built for horse and buggy or steamers. So we can't just put any size apparatus in these stations. And this is some of the reasons why we have to, at some time, we may have a spare, but it won't fit in the station. So we have to temporarily close the station, which we have 6 companies in each ward for fighting fires, 4 engines and 2 ladders. And we also had the ability to call mutual aid, which we regularly assist the outside departments on our borders, East Orange, Elizabeth, Hillside, and Belleville. So in no way is the community compromised when we do have a company or 2 go down because of mechanical issues.
My last question on the fire side, and I just want to say thank you to you because I know I reach out to you on occasion. One of the biggest frustrations that we get from our business community is the amount of time that it gets for your folks on the inspection side to go out there and do the regular inspections and renewals. And I know over the years, various, fire directors and chiefs have always expressed some challenges when it comes to staffing. Are you guys still kind of like in the same boat as far as the amount of time that it takes to do these inspections, the delays that happen as a result of that? Do you feel that you've made progress? Are there things that you need from the city in order to make that unit more efficient and at the same time better serve, our business community? Some of them do pay for the registration and renewal, and it could take months for them to have an inspector come out. And in the interim, sometimes they get cited by code enforcement because they don't have these certificates that they paid 4 months ago from fire. Like, how do we get that to the point where it needs to be?
So we're working on that. We have been for the last several years. Fire prevention inspectors, they have to be trained by the state. It's a state course at the county academies. It's several months to get the certificate. Then once you complete the class, you have to take a test. And the state test is not an easy test, especially when you're not familiar with fire or you don't have a fire background. So in the city of Newark, we have civilians in these positions. So we've hired up to our TO, so we have no vacancies at this time. We currently are seeking at least 14 new inspectors, but it will have to be put in our budget. We have proposed this to the business administrator, and I believe the city is on board with this. We are, I think, taking the necessary steps to better that unit. We are fielding more phone calls. We're getting more people in there. We put more people in to be a part of the customer service behind the counter, answering calls and taking care of people who come in to the office. But the key is to get more inspectors on, kind of like code enforcement, who has a large amount of people for a large amount of businesses, buildings, residential buildings and commercial within the city. There's an opportunity for the city to make great leaps and bounds with this division, and if we get more people in the division doing more inspections, we have an opportunity to bring in more revenue, which can make the unit self-sustain almost. So that's the goal. We've been talking to the administration about it, and I think we're heading in the right direction. We also are looking to get into the courts with the penalties for us when someone doesn't mitigate their violations. they will be penalized. And at that point, we hope to make the city safer and the building safer for the community and the residents.
And that's it, Madam President. I don't want to monopolize the time, but I thank you, Chief, for your responses.
All right, thank you, Councilman Ramos. Councilman Gonzalez?
Yes, quick question. I see that your employee list includes like 3 lines for police officer. What's the difference between one and the other? Let's say you have a police officer on line 0272P.
So with the police officers, when we hire them, they are temporary. So when the new law came out, we had to create a separate line for that. The guys that come in as temporary officers until they complete the academy, that didn't come in under the civil service. So they're one, and then when they're temporary officer, not temporary, the provisional officers during their training period, that's another
The
one.
ones that are less than a year.
Right, and then they move up to permanency, you
Okay.
know, and that's why we
Okay,
have.
the other question that I have is that I see that you have on the lines 08 723, 4203, 2195. This is at the end of the Division of Police. It has 5 categories with 0 personnel, but an amount included. You have one line with 55,000, one line with 40,000, one line with 40,000, a line with 300,000, a line with 20,000. That's page 8 of 18, I believe it is.
8 what?
8 of 18.
All right, so you're mentioning like the chief helicopter pilot, the training officer,
Yes,
and the
those.
investigator?
So
Yes.
if the positions are vacant now, I
Right.
suppose you don't anticipate hiring them before the year is over. So why don't we take that out of the budget?
Well, especially like for the helicopter pilot, we want to eventually have our own. The helicopter that we have to pay per diem whenever we need to send it out. So we don't have our own pilot. So that's something that we're looking to implement eventually, to have our own.
But I don't think you would do
pilot.
that this year.
We
Would you
just
do that?
haven't, we haven't found anyone to put in that position.
See,
And
before you had 2, let's say 2 police officers, actually, there was a Dominican police officer.
Well, they retired. So
And they
now we
retire.
put them in per diem.
So you don't have any police officer that is certified to fly?
Not with that experience, no.
Okay. Okay, so, yeah, my question is, you have the amount there, you have 0 personnel assigned to it. So if you're not going to hire from now until the end of the year, that amount should be taken out of the budget so that we can use it for something else.
All right, next question. Councilman Council?
Yes. Just wanted to get into the 207 vacancies, wanted to talk about the 134 officers. What is the plan in that recruitment plan, also recognizing that there may be some retirements and losses? How do we stay close around this 900 number?
In reference to the recruitment of the police right now, we are recruiting heavily. We have a class that's going to go in September 13th of 50. I think 38 will be Newark police officers, and that's only because it's a requirement of the PTC to have at least 15 outside of Newark in that class. The next following class, we still are beginning the recruitment process to hopefully have another class of our own next year once they graduate. I believe it's March or April they should be graduating. So hopefully that summer we can get another class in, proposed on discussions with the PTC, and we get out of this temporary status that we're in after this class. Hopefully get a class of 70 in that year to start slowly recouping the numbers. After, I think, is it next year in March, we don't have any scheduled classes able to retire. So we have about a 1.5 to 2 year vacancy of, another 1 2 year vacancy of hiring without anybody that can leave. Now, we have some members now that can leave that are from prior classes, but I think February, March of next year, we have nobody that can leave for approximately 2 years.
So are we measuring when that will level off to make sure that we're maximizing the amount of police that we have on the street?
Yes, we're maximizing it. One of the things we had that was we opened up the ninth precinct, which was beneficial because the workload of the east was extensive. And to alleviate the pressure of the east. So a lot of the PDs, we didn't get new personnel, but we opened up another precincts, which means they all lost some people to take over certain areas. So that's probably one of the increases of reason why the overtime went up a little bit, because now we have more area, more responsibility. As a matter of fact, it was about 35 to 4,000 jobs that the Metro picked up that the East does not have, but their numbers also increase for cost for service. So once we get these classes in, we should start backfilling. We have a class of 39, which are all on foot patrol for the summer program. 30 of them are on foot patrol, 9 are in the precincts training, and we're gonna rotate them in. Hopefully by October, they'll be full-blown capable of being on their own or out of the training process that we have them in.
All right, so I'm gonna jump back and forth because I want to talk about the 230 additional firefighters that are gonna be needed. How do we map that plan out over a duration of time? And if we can't get close to it, at what point do we look at maximizing the fire department?
So for the fire department, we hired a total of 79 firefighters, which backfilled a lot of positions. There aren't any current vacancies available. In fact, we have 19 more that are becoming available at the end of September. We've already had conversations with the business administrator of trying to get that class of 19 into the academy by the end of this year to make sure that we have a maximum amount of firefighters on duty as far as our TO is concerned.
Okay, I do want to commend you for both on fire and police at lowering the overtime significantly. But can you just explain to us what happened with the e-tickets? The cost drop in the e-tickets?
Cost drop in e-tickets?
Yeah, revenue. Went from about 7 to 5.
Is it
I don't know
tab
what
7?
I don't know what page it is, but it's in 2023, you guys collected about $9 million in e-tickets, and this year in 2024, it's $4 million. Y'all the one gave this to us. We not.
Went from 9.7 to 4.9.
The numbers we have, they've issued a lot more warnings. Those have increased. I'll check on the exact status of the exact number of where we're short, but there's been an increase in warnings to most of the stops that were happening. I'll check on what the stop ratio is. Has that decreased, or is it just the amount of money revenue generated decreased? So writing tickets is discretion of the police officer. So if we want to compare them to that, we'll have to compare the amount of stops that happen. So I can get that data for you and see if we had the same amount of stops, but less tickets, then they're still stopping vehicles. The writing the ticket is discretion of the police officer that's actually making the motor vehicle stop himself.
Does e-tickets only relate to police stops, or do it relate to when police are canvassing areas as well?
The other factor is you're comparing half the year to an entire year, I believe.
Yeah, January to June, right?
Okay, but the numbers are based on the 23 is a full year. So we're really only about
4 months out from another year. So you're telling me in 4 months, we're going to increase by 5 million? If that's the case, hey, that's great.
No,
I don't see it.
What I'm saying to you, in 4 months, we could increase by 2.5 to 3 million. And if the numbers are still the same as far as motor vehicle stop, then the reality is just discussion of person making the motor vehicle stop, what they issue. Yeah. So I'm just saying, right now, it looks like we're $4,500 million, $4-something million short. The reality is we have 4 more months left, and that may be a $2.5 million increase. So I just want to get the accurate number of what we're short.
Yeah, I'm just looking,
2 million.
Because we're talking about revenue generation, right?
Yeah.
On the police side. Then we jump over to fire and we talk about revenue generation and only fire prevention, but we don't talk about, I believe, the necessity for other engines or fire folks to be able to come out and write citations as well, which they can do. Correct?
I mean, fire right taxation as far as what?
The writing of citations
Not necessarily the 2C.
on
They can
the
write
fire side.
on the fire side,
Yes.
on inspections, that's totally different. They go inspect the building, there's discrepancies, they write tickets. On the police side, it's based on the discretion of the person that makes the motor vehicle stop.
Is the writing of citations on the fire side only done by fire prevention specialists? Or can a fire violation be written from a engine that shows up on the scene? Or
They have to be trained. They have to have the certification. And if you don't have the certification, you can't write a violation.
right, how many people that we have in all of our engine houses that have the capability of having that certification or have it when we talk about revenue generation? I don't, you guys probably missed the business administrators, earlier part about how we're moving and forecasting what's happening. And we're going to need all of these departments to play a role in how to figure out to generate and raise revenue to be able to help what we do here in the city.
Yes, Councilman, we tried that program about 5-6 years ago. It didn't work. We had this the captains that were promoted, they were all certified. And we put them in the companies and they went to do inspections and it wasn't successful because at the time, the apparatuses would burn more fuel. We have the members out for an extended period of time with the captain. It was good for learning the buildings, which we still do now, but the processing of the paperwork sometimes could be time consuming, and we'll have the companies out of service for several hours at a time doing inspections. And then if we have a fire in the city, they can be out of their district or out of their areas.
I guess what the councilman is saying that you might want to take a look back at it. All right,
Gotcha.
get creative. I mean, y'all gotta be, the BA was talking about the need. I mean, all of us been talking about the need and how our budget is super tight. Oh, well, we're like basically poor at this point, looking at this budget. And so every department has to do their part in looking at how we can bring in more revenue. It's everyone's job. And it's especially y'all job. Y'all got the biggest binder up here. So, I mean, y'all should be coming here with some presentations on how we get some more revenue. I don't know. It's a lot. It's just, all we see is numbers from you all. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it might be a good time to take a look back at how you can make the program work, how you can train people, and spend a couple of dollars in training people to, get some revenue and do some of the inspections and write tickets or whatever. But I think that's what the councilman is trying to say. Councilman, did you have any follow-up questions before we move on?
That was it.
Okay, Councilman Crump.
Thank you, Council President. Just to kind of, almost to piggyback on what you just said, with regards to, for instance, for the overtime, and I'll stick just police side, not the fire. It's a significant amount of overtime, and I know, so two things. Number one, when these more police officers that go through training and get on the rolls, do you expect overtime to decrease significantly?
The only way overtime would be decreased significantly is for us to get the full staff where we can man every single station properly. Eventually that will decrease with the implementation of the academy and getting these classes through. The same thing that happened in the fire department, overtime was way up. And in the past, 4 months since we've had the academy class graduate, it's gone down to, for the past couple weeks, minus 2%, 9%, 2%, minus 1% as of last.
So how many new police officers would it take for the overtime to decrease?
I would assume
10,000.
Yeah, that's a little too. I don't know if I can
They
manage
say that
many.
every year. They gonna come
I
back in here
said
still
if
with an
we-
overtime list.
Yeah, well, there's certain things that are unavoidable between manpower constraints, call outs, sick and distressed, vacations. That's what really causes the general cost of the overtime. If we ended up putting, without the loss of the next 2 years, if we put in 150 to 200 officers in, that would help decrease the amount of overtime. We have personnel working their shifts and we wouldn't have the manpower constraints. Right now, if we have 2 people call out, it's gonna cost overtime to backfill.
So, and with that also, you do have reimbursements to some degree, but it's only $320,000 in terms of reimbursements. Is there a discussion, expectation, or something that the police department or public safety will do, or is looking forward to do, that is going to increase reimbursement?
Reimbursement for the overtime?
For overtime, yeah.
Well, The ways we can assist is some of the costs that are overtime generated, as I said, besides the police department, is the events that we host. I said our primary overtime expenditures in the police department is Prudential Center, 845,000. Other special events, which is festivals, events, are 1.1 million. The suppression details are 4 million for the shootings, and public housing is 1.2 million. So right there, just those four categories are close to 4, 5, 6, almost $7 million in overtime, which can be significantly decreased. I know the BA has some requests in reference to Prudential Center. The other time is the special events that we have to cover. That's also gets put in our overtime.
So is there, so for Prudential and let's say Prudential and others like that, there's a lot of overtime that's expended by the police department. Is there any discussion or possibility or probability to have Prudential or some of these other organizations reimburse? Because 320,000 is really a small amount of reimbursement for $30 million. And, I understand a significant amount of that is for actual policing, which is important. And I 100% agree with that. But for things like, at Prudential and other places, is there
The
discussion
administration
on
is having discussions. I spoke to the BA. The BA is having discussions in reference to that, offsetting those revenues for Prudential, also having, because we're housing authority, offsetting some of those. Those are in constant dialogue to help reduce that financial constraint through the city.
I hope it's something that can happen, because I understand the need for the overtime, but at some point we need to get somebody to pay for that instead of us.
So we need somebody to pay for that now. Yeah, y'all be there every night. Any questions on this side? Councilman Silva?
Yes, good afternoon, Director, and thank you, Chief, Directors, and everyone for being here. I personally have a different perspective. I know how difficult the job is with you guys. If I could twist the BA's arm, I would increase your budget, but he's much stronger than I am, so I can't do that. Director, the only two things I have, sir, are I think the Council President and I discussed it last year, because we're in wards where development are going to heights that have never been seen right here in the city. And we're concerned, and I understand that you only have a small percentage of your budget going into equipment and things like that. And the chief last year and I actually discussed things. What I care about is the safety of our residents, but at the same time, the safety of our firemen, to make sure that they have the tools they need to keep our residents safe. We had mentioned last year, our council president, of building possibly a central firehouse that could store equipment, because we're going to see 25, 30 stories in the near future here. And I'm disappointed to see that you only have a small percentage of the budget for the police and fire, because I think that we need to give these firemen and these policemen the tools they need to keep our residents safe. And to see only, like I said, a small percentage go into equipment and other things is disappointing to see. But that's something we could discuss at a later time. The other thing, Director, is I know, looking back at the first page, the number of personnel, 2499, has stayed flat. It hasn't gone up. The city grows every day. We pass here things to move our city forward. And again, our number one priority is always our residents. But we're building more buildings. We're building more businesses are opening up. And I don't know what the answer is. I know you gave Councilman Council a few numbers regarding personnel and retirements, and I know it's a difficult task. We've been battling this for years before you even got here. I wasn't here, but I knew that retirement started a while ago, and mass retirements. But there has to be a better way to get more cops on the street to keep our residents safe. I understand the numbers are what they are, low in homicides, but there are other issues, and police response time is one of them that I'm getting feedback from my residents in the East Ward. They call the police, sometimes they don't show up, sometimes they do. And I realize that we have things here that we can't control, such as the retirements, people leaving, officers getting injured and leaving, officers leaving used to leave for other places, but we cut that back, thank God. But at the end of the day, seeing that number flat at 2499 in public safety, to me, is disappointed along with the budget for, given the resources that we need for both police and fire. That's it.
You have a response?
Yeah, so we do, the only increase that we do have is training for the fire department and equipment. It was 1% increase. And just in reference to firehouse, we've had discussions with the administration in reference to a downtown firehouse, because we have a ladder truck that's brand new. It's one of the largest out for these high-rise buildings that are there and going up. So there is some discussions to try and get a downtown firehouse equipped to specifically cover the downtown area, which includes the east, in a sense. So that's, and we also asked for an increase in their training budget because we have all these new officers because of that fatal incident we had last year, being trained in emergency management techniques and procedures for high-risk, high-impact situations. So there is an increase in support for us to try and get that going forward. We're hoping as we go forward, we can get that across the finish line.
I think it's inevitable that it has to happen because at the end of the day, there's projects in the central and in the east ward that within the next 2-3 years will be up and going. And if we don't prepare for those days, the future will be here quicker than you think. I think that we're leaving ourselves open to something tragedy that we don't want to see happen. So it's important that we get prepared now because these developments will be coming sooner than later.
Before I switch to Councilman Quintana, last year, and Councilman Silva mentioned it, we were talking about buying a ladder for not so much the new buildings, because we have buildings up and down Freelehuysen Avenue that are more than 15 stories high. But did we ever purchase that ladder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
So we have that ladder already.
Yes.
We just don't have storage for it.
We have storage.
Oh, okay.
Within the last 2 years, we took on approximately 13 fire trucks.
Okay. Just good to know.
Just one last question, 2 questions. You just closed the Congress Street Firehouse down. Was that for remediation or was that structural down in the East Ward?
Structural.
Okay,
It's been remediated, and phase 2 of the Phoenix program is for structural integrity repairs for all the stations.
And 191 Orange Street, I understand that we're out of there. Do we have, where did we put all that apparatus, all that equipment that was located at 191 Orange?
So we're out of 191 for the most part. There's still a couple of items I believe are still there, but for the most part, we're done there. Throughout the city, we have different locations that we've put our specialized equipment. Some of it is centralized in different locations that are secured lots and stuff. And some we've put, and we have other stations that we put stuff in and secured it for the most part.
So they're accessible if the fire department needs anything in case of emergency?
They're accessible, yes. And if we need something in emergency, we are able to get them. And also, we're working on a temporary joint training with Irvington to continue our hands-on training until we establish a facility similar to what we had at 191 Orange Street. So we've in the process of getting an agreement, a hold harmless and everything that is needed so that we can safely go up there and train with them, which is like our sister department. They're right next to us. We're constantly in their town for mutual aid, and they're here. So it's a good opportunities for us to work together with them.
We actually completed, the BA signed a hold harmless clause, and we're going to be using their facility, our equipment, to train jointly in emergency responses and fire apparatuses, rappelling, and things of that nature.
Does it come with any revenue? No?
They're not charging us either.
I'm just asking, like, do it come with some money? Like, no? Okay. Councilman Quintana.
Yeah, Madam President, in terms of the overtime of the arenas, if you take the nation around the country, and I think you need to look into it. If you take Staples Center in Los Angeles, there is a fee that Staples Center has to pay out of public safety, meaning on the police side, on the fire side. If you take Madison Square Garden in the city of New York, in their agreement, they have to pay our police. In Newark's agreement, there's no agreement because the way And by the way, I didn't vote for the arena at the time because I knew that there was issues. And I knew that $90 million of taxpayers' money at the time. And my concern continues to have been that there was no negotiations at the time. And I was very adamant on this council about that whole concern, about the arena was going to take away from the police officers deploying people out of the city on the snowstorms or on emergencies because it was going to tie it up. Somebody has to pay for these things. And I don't think on the backs of the taxpayers, we got to continue. We need to sit down with the arena folks because we have had bad deals with the arena. It's a great, beautiful attraction for Newark, but the people of Newark don't live in the arena. They live in the neighborhoods. And in 1986, as a person who knows this history of the city, in 1985, there was issue here. And policing was the biggest issue when people called and it was said, please hold on until the next available person. And you know that, John, because your father campaigned on that in 1985. And people could not wait. So again, when police response is very important. But in terms of overtime, we need to look at that on what happens around the country. Every entity that has arenas, how do they get the funding? Because, or they, on the ticket sales pays for the public safety. So we are not getting anything in return because the deal was done through the housing authority at the time of the arena. The city was out of the agreement. On the other matter, Engine 28, you said, there is approximately the largest senior and public housing is on North 6th Street. The high-rise buildings of seniors, 801, 900, that whole area. So again, I think Engine 28 on North 6th Street is crucial because if you look at the property around 6th Street, there is so much property there that another building could be built next to it. And again, the other matter is the firehouses, the precincts. Look, we can be poor, we can have some presentation. Flags in front of the place, make it look nice, make it attractive. If you go to any given town, there are firehouses and police. The entrance gives you an appearance of what it looks like. We come to these police precincts and they're atrocious. Our people have to sit on benches to wait for family that are just deplorable. So again, we had talked at one time, the building that in the Northward, Councilman Gonzalez, remember the time about building behind Grafton Avenue? That whole area before it was talked about a heliport, it was talked about all these things. And they had talked about creating some kind of facility where it would house police and fire in case of things. But there is property within the city. We can't give it away to developers. We need to give it to the people who need these operations, and you need it. Because if I looked at these firehouses and the conditions are just deplorable, and we got to do better. And it's not you. This has been an ongoing situation since the 1980s, since the 80s, that continues to be the problem. Our men and women need to work in good settings, and good settings where OSHA doesn't have to come and say you're in violation. So again, these are the things I like to see. Please, we can't wait for a fire to take place on North 6th Street by the people from Mount Prospect or Park Avenue come. People can't wait when you're in that situation. So I just want to put that, and just don't reflect in on anyone, because I support police. I love police. I have always been a supporter and champion of police. My son is a police officer. My daughter's a police officer. So I understand their conditions, how they should be. And you know, we have good men and women in this police department and in the fire department. So let's give them a good job setting so then they go to work. It's an environment where they can have a clean locker and they can have the facility appropriately for them. This is just what I want to put on this record for this budget. Find some money, let's fix these facilities, make sure we chip in and buy you some flags and put them in front of places, American flags. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Councilman Quintana. Any other comments before
Yep,
we have to
Madam-
move on to
Madam Chair, just,
one more
yep, two quick
department?
things. I'm out. I just
Councilman
wanna-
Council and Councilman Gonzalez.
Yeah, I just wanted to know about the MOU last year. We talked about the watershed, the police, the apparatuses up there when we talk about revenue generation. What role are we playing in terms of ticket writing up at the watershed? And if there's a MOU in place to make sure that that happens, because again, we miss a lot of revenue for individuals who are up there on the weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, on city property, doing things that they should not be doing, illegally fishing, illegally hunting, trapping for animals. And we need to be aggressive in trying to generate revenue from that area. And I know that there was some discussion around this before about putting apparatuses and things in place, drones and all of these other mechanisms, and putting some security up there. But where are we in terms of revenue generation? Have we written any tickets? What does that look like in terms of revenue? And how many tickets have we written for the clear zone ordinance? Like, what is the revenue on that as well? Do we have any revenue on the clear zone ordinance that we passed up here?
One of the first part of the question is the watershed. That was a process that we had a discussion about starting a small group of, I believe, 6 or 8 police officers to be assigned there with the assistance of DPW and getting the place built for that factor. As we went forward, it was at some point decided that it was as far as cost and funding to pay for, it was more important at that point in time. We ended up opening up the Metro 9th precinct to separate the major overflow of over 8,000 jobs that they had in the east. That we had problems with the park there, the train station. So we opened up this precinct and slightly downsized each precinct to engulf the new 9th precinct to give more residents to keep the downtown safe, because downtown is the mecca center of the financial apparatus of this city to keep going forward. So that has fell the wayside as far as support and personnel to put there. But all of this revolves around the main thing, personnel constraints that you have to actually send 4 cars and 8 people assigned on the pitman to there every single day of the week. So there's nobody out there doing active enforcement in the facility. There's personnel that loop the area, but not to the extent where they're just doing patrols. These are just all personnel and financial constraints that we have to decide on what's most important to get complete this time. And this time, the downtown area was a lot more important. For the revenue, there is patrols up there. We do have patrols by all the locals up there, but those tickets are written in those areas where they're patrolling the areas also. In reference to the clear zone, I have to get those numbers for you right? Yeah, so we don't have any of those. So on the clear zone, we don't have any numbers on the clear zone numbers.
Yeah, we have to
right
get
now.
some numbers
Yep, I hear
on
you.
clear zone, director. We have to get some numbers. That means we have to start enforcing. And we cannot leave 35,000 acres of land just, unenforced. That is not a good sign. That's city property. 35,000 acres of land is city property. We have to come up with some strategy to monitor it, to make sure that the folks that are up there using our land illegally, that we're not getting tickets written, we're not getting revenue from. Like, we have to figure out a strategy how we do that. That's why we have all these partnerships. If it's the water department, DPW, if it's hiring other kind of folks to put up there, this revenue just would wrap itself around and help with the people that we put in place. So it wouldn't put a hindrance or strain on the organization. It would probably help the organization with the amount of illegal fishing that is happening up there, the amount of illegal dirt bike riding, the amount of trespassing all on the property. All of those tickets and revenue can be generated back here, because the West Milford police are only concerned about what's happening on the peripheral. They'll write their tickets and they'll keep their summonses. And in the meantime, once they go inside of all of our property, right, there is nothing there for enforcement measures. So I'm just, hopefully down the line, we can work with the BA to help generate some revenue.
They did generate that. We would have to get MOUs with all those departments, because while they're there, the incidents are happening in those jurisdictions. So that it's not a total revenue for here, it's a split cost of the jurisdiction where the court, that they would go to court in that matter. So that would be a discussion. We've had those discussions, and I'm sure we'll restart again with the business administrator and the city to make sure we can go forward with that.
Okay, Councilman
Gotcha.
Gonzalez?
Yes, three things. One is, let's say, I believe that we have an agreement with the arena where we pay $2.7 million, I believe it is, for the taxes that the taxi, or what is it, the parking tax that we pay them for. They were supposed to pay us rent. We ended up paying them $2.7 million a year. I believe there's space there to negotiate them returning some of that money to the city for what the services that the city provide them. Second, I believe that, let's say, if we were to enforce drinking, public drinking, let's say, you get more money going after the people that are drinking on our streets that you would get from people, let's say, from going to the watershed and enforcing the law in the watershed. We have a lot of people that are drinking on our streets, and we don't do anything. The other thing that we have, and somebody complained to us, is the different methods that are out there of transportation, the mopeds, all that illegal motorcycles with no helmets, doing wheelies in front of City Hall. You go to Broadway. Sometimes I go there to smoke a cigar, and the show is the motorcycles doing wheelies in front of the supermarket, in front of Casa del Tabaco. Nobody enforces it. Let's say police officers go by their side and nobody enforces it. I believe that there's a lot of opportunities for increasing revenue, but we are not making sure that we are, let's say, enforcing the law. Sometimes it behooves me to think, what they say, why is it that we don't, let's say, block the street and these motorcycles can go anywhere? You have 50 motorcycles going on Broadway, so why don't you block the street? And they are, let's say, dead on the water. But we are not doing anything. And I believe that, let's say, the towns around us, let's say, if you go to Clifton and you do that, they are going to block the street. If you go to Belleville, they don't go to Belleville. They don't go to Bloomfield. They come to Newark and they do it in Newark. We have to do better.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We'll work on that. The only thing I can say is that in reference to Prudential, the BA has had discussions with me and is going to have discussions discussions on support and payment for all the costs for the overtime. In reference to the seized motorcycles, we can't really block streets off because we have to give them an egress and a point out, or else we'll be responsible for any accidents that happen because we trapped them and didn't give them a way out. So we can't block off roads to stop motorcycles from going, and they're small enough that they'll probably try and squeeze through and somebody would get hurt. We do have orders that the council did review and sign last year that gave us the opportunity to prevent them from getting fuel. So the cases of motorcycles off-road bikes being ridden in the city has decreased in the past year or so because of that approval that you guys put out there in order for us to actually seize the motorcycles and destroy them once we receive them. They also can't go to gas stations and get gas on a motorcycle that's not licensed. So there has been avenues that we've put in place to reduce those, and that statute came from Jersey City, and all the larger cities have incorporated that statute to help us enforce these motorcycles. But we do have to do better. It's not a matter of not doing better. No matter what we have and what we do, every day there's some room for improvement, and that's what we look forward to working with you and the BA.
Have we wrote tickets for gas stations? How much have we made on writing tickets to gas stations? Do we have that number?
We have done it, but I'll get that number for you. That would be something that we can get a research on the numbers we have.
I would be curious to know how many tickets we given out to gas stations for giving out gas to mopeds. I mean, I would love to see that. One thing I'll end on before we go to our next department is every week we come in here, Director Morris has the pleasure to sit here with us on many days while we're here, and we hear people come up and they talk about the lack of enforcement in traffic. And obviously, you can see that with the decrease in the numbers for you guys on the tickets that you have not written or written, however you want to look at it. And something is wrong with that because we have people continue to complain. Like sometimes folks even send us like videos. They'll show us people who are constantly breaking the law in certain areas. Usually Director Morris gets those complaints of different areas where constantly folks are just breaking the law, and police officers could be right there in their car. They don't pull them over. People send pictures all the time. So that's definitely something to take a look at as a department in terms of how do you beef back up enforcement? How do we could put our, traffic or whichever department it is, traffic, whatever, to get them back into the swing of things. And just like I said last year, we were here and I talked about the trucks, the tractors. This council changed the ordinance to increase the fines, and still people do not have tickets on those tractors. Those tractors are parked throughout the city for days. Sometimes I take pictures and I send them specifically to my captains. I look, I stop, I get out to see if there's a ticket there. There's no ticket. Revenue just being left. It's just dangling right in front of y'all, right? Like, just dangling like lights for you to be able to capture, to be able to write a ticket to tractors of people who don't even live here. They are not from here. They park their truck, they get in their car, they leave and go where they are going. And we just let the tractor stay there comfortably, like just sitting there, no ticket. There is revenue dangling and you need it. Yeah, you need it badly. So it's just a matter of, reinforcing some things to be able to get some revenue, especially for people who are breaking the law. This is why we have these ordinances on books. This is why we work hard to do them so that we can be able to enforce them. And that is what we should be focused on. Right there, commercial vehicles, everything. Folks just, having a great time. You want to have some free parking, come here to the city of Newark. That's what they say. You don't pay for no yard parking, come here. Pull up right here in the city. And so there's opportunity for you to be able to write those folks tickets and write them one each day, but that they stay there. That is what we should be doing. Councilman
Yeah,
Crump?
I just want to piggyback on what you're saying, Council President. Right in front of JFK, on that street, every day they're parking. Trucks are parking there. In fact, they're so bold that there was a car carrier there the other day. I mean,
Oh, yeah, I know.
it's egregious at this point. And I think, I agree 100% with you.
Yeah, I could just, matter of fact, I'll dedicate my time. I'll come with y'all for part-time to go write some tickets, because at the end of the day, it is just a lot of folks out there breaking the law, and no one is, doing, I wouldn't say no one, but there should be a different level of addressing it. Lastly, I will say that I was looking through the major priorities through this thick binder of money, and I didn't see anything on here about my precinct again. This been going on, for, well, I don't know what year we're in of me not having a first precinct anymore. And still, today, still don't have one. I'm still looking at a substation, a trailer place that has been there for a long time. And community members want to know, when will a first precinct be built again? What are we doing? First, I was just looking at the trailer. Now there's like a black film, I don't know, like a cover that hangs in front of it. What are we doing? Because it's not on here on the list of your major priorities.
In reference to the first precinct, that's
Yeah,
more of a
yeah,
discussion that
mhm.
we should have with, I guess, sidebar with the BA in the city on funding it and finding a location to put it. When it was, I wouldn't say taken away, when it was changed, that was also a discussion that has to go through council and the city to discuss. I wouldn't have a problem pushing forward that. We still got to find money, space, and to let that go forward also.
Somebody
have
gonna
to
have
show.
somebody gonna have to tell me something. Like, I want to answer. Like, like I said, I have been courteous. This council has been courteous. I have filtered lots of phone calls, spoke to lots of residents, and they're not calling you. They call me. When I'm at community meetings, they're complaining to me about why there's no first precinct, why there's no precinct being built after we talked about it for a long time. So someone is going to have to tell me like what the change was, what we're doing, especially when we have all of these nice new buildings coming up through the police that are, being built like, really quickly, which I appreciate. I really do. But we need to have some answers for the community regarding the first precinct, and it needs to be better than there's been some changes. So, I welcome responses in writing or follow up because the residents of the Central Ward want to know what's happening with the first precinct. Like, it's at this point, it's just like straight up, honestly disrespectful to residents and honestly to me, because we're on year, and this is before you, director, and the chief, but we're on like probably year 3 or 4 of that first precinct being closed, and still nobody has any answers. So I need to know what's happening. So that concludes our session with public safety. Because you guys have been so great here today, I'm going to invite you downstairs to the rotunda. There's some dinner down there for you to take home with you.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for your time, ma'am.
And just to think, it's not in your budget.
Sha-sha. Sha-sha.
It's free.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna take you up on it.
There's
Nothing there.
consent decree.
For you, chief, big steak down there for you.
All
Big
right,
steak.
chief.
Yep, sauce, everything.
Run in 2 days.
You could run it off on Wednesday. All right, next department.
Department of Water and Sewer Utilities.
All right, water and sewer.
I left.
All right. So, Director, hello, good evening to you and your team. Thank you so much for your patience. I know we are behind schedule. I know you all want to get home, so thank you so much for waiting around for us. You guys know public safety usually soaks up all of the time. All right, do you have an opening statement?
Yes, I'm gonna pass it around, Council President. Good evening, Council President, council members, administration, people that's watching on TV, residents. The Water Department is in a better place than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we sat here, we faced a report that came out that said we needed almost 1.4 billion in infrastructure improvements. I want to thank this council. I want to thank this administration because in the last 10 years, not including the lead service line project, we've invested over $500 million in our water and wastewater infrastructure. And because of those investments in our capital infrastructure, we're in a better place. And that better place has allowed us to invest in our equipment, our human infrastructure, right? Our personnel has come in. We've brought in a robust and diverse personnel to help us move us into the next century by investing in our infrastructure and technology. We continue to move forward. This 24/7 operation here in the water and sewer, our response time continues to remain very adequate and appreciative with the residents. We continue to improve in infrastructure, starting with our phase 2 security project up at the watershed. Our security drones are at full operation. We operate them every day, 24-hour surveillance that we provide throughout our 37,000 acres of watershed. Sometimes we say 35. That helps us include protecting some of our most valuable resources. That's one of our security drones that you can see in the council chambers. It has a
Oh,
camera on
wow.
it. If you look around, you can see that this, although it's big, it does a lot for us.
Wow. Make sure we turn that around so taxpayers can see.
Can you bring it out so the taxpayers can see? Can you bring it out some more?
All on the BA. All on the BA.
It's closer than a helicopter.
Wow. That was, I mean, yeah, okay. Clap it up for Director Dean.
Direct.
Just for the residents who are viewing, who are on for us, that is our new drone system that we purchased here in the city for the watershed, right?
Yes.
Yes, amazing. That's amazing. It's loud, but it's nice. It's really, really nice.
This is diversion. It's a diversion for people.
And I'm
up
sure
there.
Councilman Gonzalez, who has been advocating for a drone for like 10 years, he is ecstatic. Did you get training? Did you get training on it? Okay. That's great. Good job, Director Adeem. I think it will go down in history. First time we had an actual presentation like that in the chamber. So congratulations to you and your team for finally getting to the 21st century, because it's 21st century surveillance and keeping up with the times and technology. And while people think it's like a jokey joke, it's not a joke to be able to have this kind of equipment and be, really elevating our systems and our equipment here in the city. So good job to you and your team.
Thank you, Council President. And I just want to say, as we finish our final steps of our $22 million filter upgrade and operational improvements at the Pequannock Water Treatment Plant, this allows us, because of this infrastructure, to start to look forward to working on increasing our bulk water sales to neighborhood towns and communities. Although I can't share those communities' names or who we are actually negotiating with before somebody else come in, we are looking to continue to increase our bulk water sales because of the upgrades that we do in our water system every day, which brings in additional revenue to the water department and our residents. Our budget slightly increased by $7.8 million between the two utilities. This is due to drainage improvements, designs, and capital outlay in addition to our debt service that we pay out to continue to upgrade our water and wastewater system. In the nick of time, Council President, I'm going to pause right here and just take any questions that we have. I don't want to take up anyone's more time tonight.
All right, thank you so much, Director Adeem. Councilman Silva.
Yes, thanks, Director. Just a quick question. The last several weeks, with all the rain, has shown us that we have a serious problem in the city. I can only speak for the East Ward, but I'm assuming that Councilman Council probably had some issues on Freeland Heights and other areas. Is there a plan to correct this? Because as long as I've been living in the East Ward, which is my entire life, I'm not going to reveal my age, this has been an issue. Is there something in place to fix this situation? Because it cripples a lot of people, businesses, residents. The water eventually does go away, but the damage has been done to these people and to these businesses. So I was just wondering if there is something in place here to abate the issue or to at least help the issue so that when we get this type of rainfall, because it seems like now with all this global warming and everything that's going on, these rainfalls that come down several inches an hour are really, really, really causing damage to our communities.
Yes, Council President, Councilman Silva, yes. The projects that we've done over the last 10 years have mitigated the flooding. However, we can't beat Mother Nature. Climate change is real. Sea level rise is real. You've answered some of your question. The rain from the flood, we're getting 3 or 4 inches at one time, or the intensity of the rainstorms are very high intensity, drops a lot of water. The repairs or the infrastructure that we upgraded over the last couple of years allows us to get it out after the rain events are over. However, we can't beat Mother Nature. You know, we try to stay in front of Mother Nature, but the storms are getting bigger and bigger, right? Stronger and stronger and more intense. Right now, we did look at the Port Authority. We got a project that's coming on at Ann Street School that will give us some additional storage. We got a $12 million grant that we was awarded early this year from the DCA and the EPA, North Jersey Resiliency Studies. So that would take place down there to capture and retain some of the water during large rain events. However, we were on a call with the Port Authority, I want to say last Friday. It's another project that we're going to look to try to, in conjunction with the Port Authority, look to dredge and improve some of our ditches that's around the Newark, which would be the perennial ditch, Queens ditch. So a lot of the stuff we have opened up, but we do notice that some of our ditches that were built over 150, 160 years ago need to be rehabilitated. That may be stabilized from the removing of settlement to just ensuring the bank load. Our engineering team sits here, right here, and these are projects they're working on diligently. So again, we try to stay in front of the rain and the floods. And if you'll notice, from Freeland Heights and Avenue to South and Adams Street to Pulaski Street to Foundry Street, the water is not staying there for hours, right? Wilson Avenue is staying there for during the heavy, intense rain event, but we are getting it out faster because of some of those improvements we did in the last 10 years.
I just want to have one more question. I know you have a truck, or how many trucks do you have that actually clean our catch basins and all that stuff? Are they active every day of the week, or it's just utilized when we get a complaint? The catch basin cleanup truck, is it something that's always going? You have 2 men assigned there? I don't know how many trucks you have, but I know you do have one, at least to my knowledge, that I've seen. Are those guys, that's their job, that's their sole job, to clean out all the catch basins, or it's only when we get a complaint?
No, we have a 24/7 operation. I mean, those trucks ride 7 days a week. It's 3 trucks. We have 3 catch basin cleaning trucks, and we got 2 additional trucks if we need it that can do that type of cleaning. However, those 3 catch basin trucks go out each ward every day, right? But we can pull 1 truck off if we have an emergency somewhere to go somewhere else. So we try to send them in different wards every day. We're responsible by law to inspect and clean about 10,000 catch basins a year.
And the last question is the master meter reading. When will that all be completed?
So right now we're in our pilot program. The temporary meters are already in. They're getting data for us. So I think we got 90 days to finish this up. After the 90 days, we'll be going into the final design of the master meter. So we put temporary meters in all those locations so we can collect data. So we're making sure we design the meters the right way.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions for the director? I'm sorry, Councilman Council.
Yes, I don't have much. Councilman Silva asked a question about the catch basin program and initiative. Wanted to talk a little more about the safety and security up at the watershed, 35,000 acres of land. We heard from our public service folks. We've seen the drone come in, but is there a way working in collaboration, and I may have to even go back to the business administrator, and we pull this in as some kind of triangular thing, where we're talking about hiring police rangers to be able to stay in that area that operates out of the police budget, but maintains that area in the higher role and responsibility, not just for ticket writing and revenue services, but for maintaining and watching our most valuable resource, which is our water. And then secondly, we talk about revenue generation kind of pieces. And I was thinking as a council body, with the amount of illegal conversions that are taking place in the city and folks turning on water illegally to move people in, the movement in terms of what does that look like having an officer or someone related on the water side to be able to monitor that as well, to help assess a fee or fine to individuals who do such heinous acts in the city.
Council President, Councilman, Council, just far with the watershed, we're still working on a variety of different projects to increase our security. When I talk about phase 2 of the security improvement project, it's not only the drones, it's our infrared security, but with the human presence, we're looking to increase that too. I know Director Frajay said something about the focus was really to get the Metro Center up in place. However, he did draft all those MOUs and all those documents for us to move forward. We just need to meet again and brush that off. Remember, you did pass a contract for us to upgrade this council, this body, to upgrade the Verizon building into our security building. So we're still looking forward to having that. We're also in conjunction with the law department and West Milford, we need to update our fire tower. So if that happens between West Milford and their police communication system, that would give us additional resources, right, to lure them in to provide a better security on our land. They need us. Now is the time that we make sure that we hold them accountable, right, hold their feet to the fire to give us what we need. And the state, the Fish and Game. So we're constantly, and the Highlands Council, it's a number of discussions that's going on, that's taking place now about not only watershed protection, protecting our quality of water, but also securing those areas, right? The hiking trails and things like that. A lot of this stuff isn't done overnight because Newark got to make sure that we're maximizing the benefit that we're going to get, right? It's a status quo that everybody gets everything and we get the short end of the stick. I'm not looking to give in. I'm looking to receive more, right, on this end. Right? We've normally just went and took anything that they gave us, but we want to get more from them.
Is it their security? Then you had armed security there, right?
No.
Oh, so there's still no armed security?
No.
I mean, that's something, I know that the longer plan is definitely what the councilman was asking about to Director Frajay. I think that's the long-term plan, but I think this city should be able to spare some armed security guards there. The reason being is because locations like that are open to terroristic threats. You know, that is a serious problem. We've been fortunate here. I mean, God has been great to us here. That many acres bothered. Unfortunately, we have matters that happen. Like we just had a gentleman who drowned there last month because people think they can, you know, take a dip and, you know, go swimming. And that's unfortunate for that person's family, and definitely prayers to them and whatever we have to deal with legally with that. But I think, you know, in 2024, it will cost us less more if something tragic was to happen terroristically there versus us having a couple of armed security guards or a shift or two up there would be helpful. So I'm gonna ask the BA to work with you all to be able to try to get a detail there of the armed security guards that we have there to be able to assist, because that is like just leaving open borders to allow anything to happen, you know, on our water system, you know, here in the city. And hopefully folks are not watching this, listening to us talk about it, and thinking, having any thoughts about it, but I think it's worth doing. So if the BA can work with the director, like I said, hear the long-term plan, but sometimes those things take longer versus having some immediate security there.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councilman Council, did you have another follow-up?
That was it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Gonzalez?
Yes, I was blown out of the water with that, with what you had, the
The
demonstration.
drone. He loves it.
The
He
drone.
made his day.
The drone, I have been proposing that for at least 10 years, and I'm glad that we can see it. I believe that it should be, let's say, it should be vigilant in the watershed, because I believe that, say, if we have a chemical, let's say, somebody goes there and contaminates that water with chemicals or whatever, we can have a huge liability problem that could be solved or perhaps avoided by having, let's say, drones and perhaps a couple of, let's say, people going around on a regular basis on the watershed. But I believe that what concerns me on the budget is the line that says miscellaneous expenses, and you have 50-something million dollars. So what is that? What is that line on the miscellaneous expenses?
What page?
Page 2 of 13, we have
That's
$58
the
million,
same.
almost $59 million of miscellaneous expenses in the water department.
2 of 13.
Let me see the front of your book, Councilman Gonzalez. The front of your book.
This is the one.
Yeah, he's looking at the full one. I figured that.
2 of 13. We still should have it, though.
It's the second page of the water budget, the water division.
58. So,
I suppose those are.
oh, 2, we found the council.
You found it, yes.
So the miscellaneous expenses, right, come to 58 million. That's some of the payments we make, mandatory payments related around Passaic Valley and stuff that we pay out of the water utilities.
So
It's not all Passaic Valley, but some of it.
the majority is what you pay to Passaic Valley.
Yes.
So your revenue includes what you collect from, let's say, that belongs to Passaic Valley.
Well, we pay Passaic Valley up front.
No, let's say you have revenue, source revenue, let's say $71 million. That 71 million includes the portion that is, let's say, attributable to Passaic Valley.
Yes.
So, and then you pay Passaic Valley for the use of the facilities.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilman Crump?
Thank you, thank you, Council President. Just a quick question with regards to water shutoffs. So you know, and you and I have talked about this previously about shutting off water to buildings, and particularly to those who are just egregious and not paying their bills. Are you finding going forward, or at least since this has been, and I'm not judging or saying yes or no about it, but do you find that when you're shutting off the water, that you are getting a better response from those building owners and actually collecting revenue from them, or is it just still flat and they're just not following through or paying their bills?
Council President, Council Member Crump, we find that, you know, it's some foul players, but it's a very small few. As a last result, this administration, this council, we don't want to turn people water off. It's programs out there that not only the city provides funding, right, but the DCA, and we got several different options of doing payment plans, from promise pay to the water and sewer own plan to the DCA paying your water bill in full. However, the players that we're talking about that allow stuff to happen, they're in violation for a variety of different things. But as a last response is the only way we turn people water off, as a last response. And when we do that, we do get a rush of calls, but we get a good response. I just want to remind everybody on the water and sewer department. Our budget is on the revenue we collect from people paying their water and sewer bill. If you don't pay that water and sewer bill, we can't treat the water that we're providing. We can't pay the employees that's in the water and sewer department, including me. Or buy the materials to fix water main breaks or sewer breaks, like you're saying, getting the flooding out or getting the water down. So we do recognize that it's a certain group that every year that chooses not to pay their water bill, right? And the DCA has stepped in now to start dealing with them, and the administration is fully aware of that, and we're happy about that, right? Because some other thing, I think it's criminal, the things they do, right? They collect the money and don't pay their water bill when everyone else should be paying their water bill. But we do get a good response.
Get a good response. And
When the folks, and this might be not a question for you, but I'm just curious to want to know, when they don't pay their water bill and we shut them off, like some of the residential buildings that we have, does that generate a court case for them? Do they go to court?
Yes, we notify
I don't know if they go to court, but we immediately notify code enforcement. Code comes out and reaches out to the owner. It could lead to court. I don't know how many court cases went to court because we're worried about more about getting the money and they do the
Oh,
court
yeah, I'm
case.
sure. Yeah, I'm not saying, that's why I said it's not specifically for you, just want to know from the administration. But I will put an extra caveat on that and ask the clerk to ask the BA to give us a list of those buildings. Just this year alone, we had a few that had their water cut off, and how many of them went to court and got an additional fine for that? Want to know that. If, Madam Clerk, if we can put that in right into the BA, into the departments to ask that, because see, that's really the issue sometimes, not so much, well, the issue is they don't pay their water bill, but what we do to follow up is the problem. We should be getting people, these landlords, these slum landlords who do not pay their water bill, we should be getting them back as hard as we can, because these residents, they're calling, they're hurt, they're paying their rent, but their water is cut off, and it's just unacceptable on so many different levels. So would love to see that information from the administration. Councilman Crump,
That was it. Thank you.
any other questions for Director Dean? All right, seeing none. I will say that, Councilman Gonzalez, you have one more? You have one more?
No,
Okay.
let's go home.
Well, we got one more department.
One more?
Yeah, one more.
Yeah, can he just give out can you give out the number to where individuals can reach out, and if there is a fire hydrant that is missing and there's a resident that may need to get in contact for that fire hydrant replacement? So I know we have a grant program that's part of our capital program to make sure we repair and get fire hydrants back in places. But sometimes I think some of our residents get confused over who to reach out to, the fire department or the water department. So if there is a number that residents know, if there's a fire hydrant that is broke, that is disabled, that is not working, who do they reach out to? What number to call?
Council President, Councilman, Council, the number you will call is 973-733-6303. 973-733-6303. However, Councilman, I want to let you know that the fire department and water and sewer do 2 annual inspections, a spring and the fall inspection. In real time, we track how many hydrants are down, and every night we update all the hydrants that we repair and put in. A lot of the hydrants are missing because of accidents. So once we get the accident report, we schedule it to be replaced or repaired. That's an annual program.
Got it. One last question I was going to ask. When is the last time we've had the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer come out to look at our flooding here in the city?
In conjunction with engineering, the U.S. Army Corps is actively in the city right now, looking at the flood wall around the Passaic River.
Okay. Got it. All right, just wanted to double check on that. We're not the only town in New Jersey that's facing crazy flooding. It's not a Newark problem. It is literally a nation problem, as many folks are seeing infrastructure issues and how local governments can't afford to fix the problems. I think that needs to be put out there, because while we talk about, hey, what are we doing? How do we fix it? It can't get fixed off empty dollars. Someone has to pay for it, and usually that cost is of taxpayers, or on the city's budget to fix it. And many of those things are federal issues that they need to provide assistance to multiple states and municipalities. So just was wondering, had they been included on that? And hopefully some dollars will be coming soon to be able to address those many issues, especially here in Newark, but it's all throughout different cities that are having these issues. So thank you so much, Director. Just like I invited public safety, you all are welcome to dinner downstairs. There should be plenty left. We're having an event downstairs. Well, I'm having an event, but I'm here to kick off a Making Strides Against Breast Cancer event. So we have dinner downstairs, and there's some folks. So grab some food on the way out.
And Council, I just want to thank my team for coming out. Right?
Yes, thank you.
They're very
Thank you,
dedicated
Water.
to upgrading our infrastructure. Right?
Yes, water and sewer. Yes, best presentation so far. You winning. You winning, Director Dean. Thank you. Have a good night.
Whole team.
All right, next department.
The last department is the law department.
Team
All
water.
right, law. They should be quick. Most of their budget and contracts.
They
So
made the corporation council come up by itself after team water.
Oh, boy.
disappear. He got you wrong.
I was about to say, what you got?
Yeah.
Y'all ain't bring nothing?
I came with a rabbit.
You don't have a show and tell? You don't have anything with you?
No, I'm not that talented.
Man, I'm sad y'all had to be last today. So good evening, Law Department. It's good to see you guys again, you guys and girls. Corp Counsel, do you have an opening statement?
Very briefly, good evening, of course. Thank you for having us. Of course, for the record, my name is Kenyatta Stewart. I'm the City of Newark Corporation Counsel. To my right, I have Michelle Nelson, who's one of our first assistants here. And to my left, Chantel Burham, who's the Chief of Staff in the Law Department. As you all know, the Law Department is made up of majorly 4 sections: our litigation section, contracts, labor, and contract labor section, and municipal prosecutor's office. We have, depending on the day, 43 at the moment staff members, which includes 23 lawyers and 20 staff members who do clerical work throughout. Of course, we have the pleasure of working with all the departments, including the City Council, and of course, Madam Clerk and her staff throughout to make sure we try to work together to get things done. We're willing to answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay. Questions from council members. Councilwoman Scott Roundtree.
Thank you, Council President. I've been really quiet because my colleagues have been asking all of the questions, and I don't want to belabor the hour. My concern is the vacancies. There are 9 vacancies. There's office supervisors. I know there's some attorneys. So I would like to really know, Corporation Counsel, how are we moving forward to fill those vacancies? Because the truth be told, if those vacancies are there, that means that the workload is on somebody in that office, from the office supervisor to the attorneys.
Councilwoman Roundtree, and of course, through the rest of the council members. As you know, the work don't stop. And
Yes.
that's, 5 people or 500 people, the work isn't going to stop. The city is continuing to grow. And I will say that, through the KPIs and things of that nature, we are able to report every 2 weeks to the mayor and to the BA and of course to the administration of how much more activity is happening. Your council knows it through HR and of course through, I would say for the most part, Chantel Burham was to my left here. We've been interviewing people like no other. HR has provided about 25 resumes, names from all over. One person didn't even speak English as far as the words on the paper weren't even in English. I think it was like Japanese or something like that, but people were interested. We did interview most of the people we thought fit the criteria. We do expect for us to have a large number of people come in. Quite frankly, today we had somebody come in today for their first day. We have somebody scheduled to come in the next 2 weeks, which is the next pay period. And then in September, we have 3 other people coming in. So we're expecting a decent amount of people. I think there may be one more person in the pipeline coming through, and we hope that person can start in September. We have been actively speaking to different judges in reference to, the opportunity to hire their law clerks and things of that nature, because they have one kind of year of training. They're young, they want to learn. And we have a balance of trying to get young folks and of course more seasoned folks. And as you know, more seasoned folks, you try to get the right seasoned folk, because some seasoned folks are like, this is their last hurrah and we don't want them to be lazy. On the flip side, you want to get some folks with some knowledge.
So I just
That
want
you
to-
said that, not us, about
Right.
the season
I
folks.
want to, Council
Put that
President.
put that on record.
I mean, I'm making my way to that.
It's recorded.
I'm just saying. Go ahead,
I do
Councilwoman.
want to commend and thank Chantel and Mrs. Nelson, Corporation Counsel Stewart, because they have been very, very helpful with most of the matters that I've forwarded to them to assist you. And I want to thank you for dealing with a personnel issue that needed to be addressed immediately. You did not sleep on it. And anything that affects law can affect this entire city if it's not handled properly. So thank you, and just take care of those vacancies.
Certainly.
Thank you.
I do want to take a note out though that, folks can, how do I say this nicely? We can only attract talent when we pay talent.
That's right.
And the law department, there are people who are lawyers who spend a lot of time in school, lots of loans, and they make less than many people that we've seen come across our line today on this budget items. And this has been something that we've spent a lot of time talking about how do we level folks' positions and their work and their qualifications and the most important, the requirements based upon the salaries that they make, which is a struggle we have here. I'm sure many other industries have the same one, but we have it here. And we have to do something about that because you cannot attract good talent and attorneys who have lots of loans waiting on them and lots of bills, rather young or seasoned. They do not want to come here and make pennies and then see others making lots of money. So it's just something that we have to address and have to continue to work hard to address in order to fill vacancies. So just wanted to point that out.
So, Council President, I will say, timing is everything. We have been in long discussions with the folks at HR. We have come to a space where we made at least an agreement, understanding. HR is actually actively, and I've used the word actively on purpose, putting an increase in the salaries for the people who are here. They've been advertising in reference to a higher starting amount, so we can at least try to attract people when it comes to, a certain level of an attorney, for lack of better words. And the harsh reality is that, listen, life isn't perfect, but people don't want to work for crumbs. And we're at that place where we're doing it now. The BA has been involved to a higher level. The mayor is certainly involved, and HR is involved as well.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Other questions for law? Councilman Council?
Yes, I know we have systems in place as it relates to contracts that we have with multiple vendors, but there also needs to be some kind of survey of, best practices, work-related, how we fare with these different vendors so that we're able to have this information with us, especially when we're talking about trying to renew different contracts, who's been really doing the work that the city is contracting them out for in terms of getting this partnership relationship going, because we do spend a lot of money on outside counsel. We want to recognize that we get the best bang for our buck at all times. And in order to do that, we have to ensure that there's some systems in place internally to make sure that we're monitoring them externally. So I just want to.
No, certainly. I actually had a long talk with the BA today in reference to, making some changes in the law department. And one of the things we did talk about was systems in place, internal and for outside counsel and things of that nature. I will say that, any day, any moment, we can have a bulk of cases come through the door. And that may be because some, horrific incident have happened, or it may be a situation where, unfortunately, folks may sue us by mistake. Sometimes we get that. Folks may sue the county, sue the city, and sue everybody else involved, and then we still have to defend it and get to a place. But I will say that as far as systems, it's important. We thought we at least had a decent amount of systems, but we recognize and appreciate that we should add some more to make sure we tighten it up.
Okay, any other questions for law? It's kind of dry because you didn't bring up anything to show us.
So
I'm joking. You didn't bring like a show and tell. It's like
I can't listen. Unfortunately, all of our tricks are on paper.
After the drone, you can't compete.
It's hard to come back
I
after the
mean,
drone.
I don't really know.
Councilman Gonzalez said he loved the zones, the
Yeah.
drone. So
He got zoned out after the zone.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, that was a joke, folks who were watching on.
No, of course.
Who were watching on. I don't want anybody to say, "Oh, they're joking." No, we're just making fun of the hour. You have to have fun in this. Councilman Gonzalez, you had a follow-up question.
He submitted the budget at the last minute, so we don't have time to review it.
I don't know about that.
No, they had their budget.
See, he submitted it today. I received it today.
Oh, no.
Last week.
Well, I mean,
Everybody else I had for a week.
Maybe they were holding it away from you. It's been here though.
Yeah, I got mine last week. Yeah, I got mine last week.
That's teasing.
I will end on this note. I just want to say that the prosecutor is still underneath you, right? The prosecutor's office. I just can't let you just leave here without bringing that up, because it is a contributor to our issues here as it relates to court and tickets and UCC and code enforcement. And every time I come, and I always say the same thing for the last couple of years, like, what do we do to address the issues out of the prosecutor's office to the court office, those different layers, like a whole layer, of why we just can't seem to make people pay here in this city. I don't know what it is. What is the breakdown of that? And so I continue to bring that to you because I just can't let you leave here without me saying what, is the breakdown and the problems. I know it's multiple. I know it's multiple layers, but sometimes on many occasions, and you know this because we have to copy you to be able to try to get some response about what is happening with certain cases and different things that, relate around slum landlords that we have here in the city, that we spend hours here on this council hearing about every week, about folks who just don't do right by our residents. So it's definitely something that we should really try to address and what we can do better to be able to have that department working collaboratively with the other departments to be able to, get our fair share here in this city.
So I will say that I was listening to some of the questions that were asked. I actually have three different questions, two different answers to the different questions that some council members might have asked other people in reference to the administration. But one of the things that I do recognize is that we've had some struggles with specific locations. Council President, is no secret. You and I have talked about it on several occasions. We've tried to find a way to address some of the issues. I will also say that, the law department has a two-part, like a two-pronged process now through the eyes of the mayor and administration. One part is the code enforcement prosecutor side. And the other part is the code enforcement and everyone else on the special project side. So yes, it's 100% true. We do need to make sure that some of these landlords pay their fair share. We have been going to court getting, other activity done when it comes to receiverships and things of that nature when it comes to addressing some of these issues. I mean, council knows that we were just in this last week in his ward, I think twice last week in reference to some of the issues. I'm actually actively working with Corinthia and with Director Wooden in reference to some folks that were in landlord tenant court because of an issue with a slum landlord, dealing with some of those, trying to give folks some leeway because of some of the issues that's been going on. So I'm 100% with you. I did ask the crazy question because I was crazy enough to ask it because I thought it would be a question to come to us. I said, what are we averaging per month when it comes to fines and assessments that we are, when it comes to just code? And what I understand is over $100,000 in fines and assessment per month.
How much?
Over $100,000.
Oh, that's it?
I mean, I'm not saying, it's, it's not a drop in the bucket, but my point is, hear me out. My point is, it's proof that some of it is working and there's a whole lot that's not working, so we need to address it.
It's a whole lot that's not working. I just want to tell the BA back there, there's your money.
I know that
it's dangling right there in front of us, just looking at us, dancing, for us to get. All you gotta do is grab it.
I do know that.
All you gotta do is look, Mr. BA. All you gotta do is go like this. That's it. It's right there.
Well, one of the questions that you asked yourself was about water shutoffs and that whole process. Of course, as I just mentioned, the two-pronged process that's been going on. We've been getting folks in court in Superior Court on one side, but once code enforcement writes a ticket, they're in municipal court in reference to the same issue when it comes to that violation of having water and things of that nature. And to tell you the truth, most of it is the landlords running to pay it faster, right? So they pay it before we even have a chance to address it. But that's, again, one of the things that we're dealing with when it comes to municipal court.
Well, we had some cases where people were out for days.
Oh, no, I heard.
So they don't be moving too fast. And even if they move fast, even if they go do it in 5 minutes.
They need to pay. Still,
you need to pay. There should be something that says you should have never let the water get cut off for those residents. And because of that, 5,000, 10, I don't care what it is. 10, it should be a lot of money that they have to pay for making that happen because it is a inconvenience to residents who pay their rent. If they didn't pay, they would be in court. They would be trying to put them out, and there would be no understanding for them. So we should have no understanding for them here.
100%.
That's the way that it is. Everyone has to pay their bills. They have to pay their fair share here, and these folks should be paying it. Regardless if they go get it cut back on the same day, they should have never let it happen for them. And the reason why I'm saying is because we all have to deal with it here. All of us, we're getting the calls. You're getting the calls. Everybody here is dealing with them not treating their residents right, and it's not right. We should tax and pay and make them pay the fines at the highest level. I do not care. I have no sympathy for people who don't treat their residents good. I don't. I'm sorry.
No, I agree 100%.
I'm sorry, but not sorry.
Yeah, Madam President, I
Yes.
suppose we have to revise the ordinance and increase the fines, because I believe that the fines are up to like $1,000 for the third violation. So we have to make sure that, let's say, the ordinance allow hefty fines.
Yeah, we definitely working with Jessica from court in reference to.
Well, I mean, they don't even enforce the 1,000.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say that.
I know.
I actually also had an answer to, I know there was some questions about the Prudential Center earlier. We, myself and the BA are actively working with, higher management in the Prudential Center in reference to negotiations, including police overtime. So that is one of the topics of discussion to bring to the table. We are like, we met with them a few months ago. We're actively talking about some real items, and that's one of the topics of discussion.
If we can get a concession on that $2.7 million, that time 30 years, that's $91 million that we are transferring to them.
Your math is good.
Also, Council President, I'm sorry.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Councilman Silva?
Yeah, just a quick thing. I noticed that the BA, this might be for the BA, 2.5 million. Is that still their lease agreement that's in place with them? That was part of the budget, 2.5 million. Is there anything that we could do to renegotiate that amount?
We're working on it now.
Okay. And the second thing is, I also am letting you guys know that we also provide manpower and overtime to a place that's not even in the city of Newark, and that's the Red Bull Arena. So whenever there's a Red Bull game, there's about 15 cops on, I'm pretty sure it's overtime, because I know most of their schedules. So we might want to look into that as well. The Red Bull Arena, every time there's a game, there's a large police presence all down Market Street, down up Raymond Boulevard. So I'm pretty sure that we're also maybe paying for that. So that's something to look into as well.
Well, since we're on the topic, can we get to this council, this is for you, Madam Clerk, Mr. BA, can we get to this council, how much any of those entities are paying to us, like the Red Bull Stadium, Prudential, we provide for NJ Pack as well. There are multiple places that we're giving police officers to, and what do we get in exchange of the revenue back to the city? It'll be good to get a full report on that. I mean, I didn't know that about the Red Bulls, so that's good information. If we can get a report back to us, that'll be great.
Madam President, my
Yes.
last response, I recognize this was also a topic of discussion in reference to the watershed. We are in the process of dealing with the tax appeal. We're ongoing litigation with them. They're supposed to provide us with services. So one of the
city?
The city, exactly.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
when it comes to police, fire, everything else. So we need to follow up with them to make sure that we drill down on the services that they're supposed to provide us and make sure that we get what our money is paying for.
Oh, that's good information. Okay. Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, I doubt it comes with 24-hour security, though.
I mean, at the very least.
I mean, they probably call, if you call 911, it's part of our taxes for them to respond. But just like we tell people here, we don't give you personal security. You have to have your own security. So I would think it's the same thing for us there. But either way, I'm going to say this again, not to you, Corp Counsel and your team, but once again, we should put some armed security guards there immediately, along with the drone, like Councilman Gonzalez mentioned, to get that regularly going. Let's not take, our good fortune for granted. Let's attend to that and make sure that we're really doing what we need to do up there, versus something happening and we're like all scrambling, going crazy about it. But that is good information. It might be helpful even for this council to see the agreement or whatever we're supposed to be getting so that folks can see it in writing. With that being said, that closes our budget hearing. We want to thank you, Corp Council, for being our final. And just like I invited everyone, you guys can grab some dinner if it's some left downstairs.
Okay.
And everyone that is here can actually go downstairs, everyone, and get them some dinner. Right, Hassan? Okay, great. Have a good evening. We'll see you back tomorrow, starting at 4 o'clock p.m. sharp for part 2 of our budget hearing. Thank you all. Have a great night.